Three, two, one.
今夜もミュージック君へのラッキー笑い合って抱き合って幸せにほらなれるように
Hello and welcome to another EWB.
We're
First one in a while.
back.
Yeah. We wish we weren't,
I really wish I wasn't here.
but we have to do this video because
it's been like in the back of our minds. We've been aware of this video we're about to talk about for a long time, and no. Oh God.
see, like, just to preface this, is there's two kinds of like bad Madoka takes. Like, okay, there's probably more, but I don't want to think about that.
There's only two major ones we want to think about right now.
One of them is Madoka is a deconstruction.
Oh.
It's not. And this is the second take, that Madoka is somehow like antithetical to magical girls and therefore is bad. Which I don't.
It's the title of this video is called Madoka Magica, the Dumpster Fire Masterpiece, and just from that title and from the thumbnail, you can kind of tell that there's
a lot of bad faith going on, a lot of misunderstanding of Madoka.
I mean, you can also tell by the fact that the ratio right now is 404 likes to 385 dislikes, so it's like, you know, there's a lot of like people that are like even people who like have this like. This take isn't that uncommon, but like the fact that this video has like as much like people like in the comments as well, like just pointing out how this video is like in bad faith is kind of, you know,
indicative. Yeah, but at the same time, I do feel like as far as like people who understand Madoka, at least who've made videos on Madoka, it's like it's us and no one else, unfortunately. Like, at least I haven't met, like, even like the ones that are like decent are still usually missing some kind of context, or their reading isn't necessarily complete. And I do kind of get it, because again, like I sort of stated in my video, the story isn't over, so it's like on some level I can kind of understand where, like, I remember Vindy had a point where he said, we were talking, is like most people don't really get something until they rewatch it. Like, our ability to get the point by going through it just once is, you know, uncommon. And so, you know, Madoka's a story that I did need to go through it more than once to get it.
Yeah. Because like Madoka as a story, by the fact that it is like not finished technically, will like make anybody not fully understand it anyway, right? Because even from the original series, it technically wasn't done. And on top of that, Rebellion, if you think of Madoka, the original series, as being done, you watch Rebellion and you immediately think this is tacked on, unless you look at it in retrospect. Right.
And I do think that hindered the discussion because, like, especially in retrospect, like, the ending of the original Madoka is, like, I can almost understand this take because it's not good, but this person isn't even correct about why that the original ending isn't like ideal. Like the original ending isn't ideal because it goes suicide is badass, and so it kind of, that's why we need the Rebellion to be like suicide is not badass and, you know, fix it. But then we still need another thing to continue on this conflict and finish it. But Shaft is busy making it.
Yeah, Rebellion kind of almost goes like intentionally like suicide is not badass. Don't do it. It's bad. And It's so interesting that people still miss that, I guess. It's interesting. And mostly because most people haven't watched Madoka since, like, Rebellion, or even, like, a little after. I haven't talked to anybody who's watched Madoka recently.
But anyway, we should probably start this video.
Should we? Do I want to hurt myself?
See,
like
you can tell how bad the video is by how long the intro is, because the longer the intro is, the longer we're trying to, like,
the less I have to
avoid
actually
pain.
watch it.
No, that just means it takes longer to finally get through it.
Oh, you're right. You know, that is a good point. Oh, God, it's playing. Did they put their logo in there?
Yes.
To say that she understands more? Wait, what the fuck? They didn't spell exchange right! Oh my god, this intro is making me like... I never realized because I didn't pay attention to this intro. Oh my fucking god.
That's like the definition of bad faith right there.
Yeah, okay, I get it's like an intro made to be like humorous, but it literally screams like, when
I was young and first watched Madoka, I thought it was good. Then I grew up and realized it was bad.
It might be bad. And the reason and the reasoning for why it might be bad, fellas, you're gonna just hear this, and for all those whose neurons are activated, you should be realizing there's something wrong. Because this intro, right? There's kind of layers of irony to this, because she's using Sayaka, right? She's using Sayaka.
No, that's so fitting to the whole video. Is that like a major factor of Madoka is that these are kids who are on some major levels wrong because they are children.
Look,
and yet ironically, this video is wrong, but it's coming from the same self-righteous place a child might be. The best. Well, I think what you're gonna say is how she said, "Oh, Madoka might be bad," but really Sayaka said, "I'm stupid," and that's actually more accurate.
Yeah, because Sayaka in the story admits that she's fucking stupid. So it's even funnier because like that's her entire character, is that she went on this journey and thought her innocence was gone because she just couldn't tell the guy she likes that she liked him, and she realizes that everything she's done up until that point, oh my god, wait, I'm stupid. And it's like I'm watching this and it's like, is there another clip you could have used of another character? But the fact that she specifically used this character means that she's like, I'm not gonna say that she's saying she's stupid, but it's the fact that she's using this clip. It's just so funny because it shows, one, a lack of understanding of the character if she didn't do that intentionally. Two, if she does it intentionally, it's still funny. It's like I don't like, and the fact that she put her logo inside that, she took the time to like put her logo inside the witch gem.
Yeah.
I mean the magical girl gem is pretty...
Oh yeah, Madoka spoilers, by the way.
Uh-oh. I mean, okay, this entire video is a Madoka spoiler. If you're
right, why would you watch this if you were... I'm interested in Madoka, but I should see what these guys have to say about this 20-minute long teardown of the series. There won't be any spoilers, so...
No spoilers at all.
Anyway.
So I bet you're wondering what this video is supposed to be. What kind of claims am I going to make with a title like that? And who is this even for? Honestly, I don't know. I think I'm going to say some things that will make fans of the show angry, as well as things that would piss off detractors. So what I'm trying to say is, I want to have a nuanced conversation about Puella, Magi, Madoka Magica. Specifically, the original 12-episode series, not any of the movies or comics or Madoka 2 Electric Boogaloo. So while there will be spoilers for the original series, the rest is safe. We're also going to be talking very briefly about violence, and there will be an unironic discussion of the word moe.
What wording she's using, though?
Madoka Magica is just shy of a decade old now, but despite the time that's passed since its initial run, it remains as one of the most famous anime out there. Finding an anime fan who hasn't watched it is a challenge, and finding a fan who hasn't even heard of it is nigh impossible. It was a breakout success as an original work and a twisting of norms, focusing on the theoretical dark side of the magical girl genre. Even now, it's ranked as the 59th most popular anime of all time by My Anime List, and continues to hold an 8.4 out of 10 there, as well as an even greater 4.8 out of 5 on Crunchyroll. But I think there are some major problems with Madoka Magica that don't really get addressed, in part because it's such a universally loved work. Despite how this might look, I'm not here to be edgy or contrary or show you all how smart I am for not liking a popular thing. I'm a little late for that anyway. What I'm aiming to do is critique Madoka on a more meta level, by taking a step back and looking at the work as a piece of a greater tradition, a body of work that started long before the show's conception and has continued after it. I want to look at the people who made it, specifically the Magica Quartet team that is responsible for what makes Madoka Madoka, and examine a bit of their process. I hope you'll be willing to listen to all the things I have to say here, and allow me to lay down some facts and opinions that might help you understand why I think that, on some levels, Madoka Magica is a bad piece of media. Long preamble aside, let's get moving.
Okay. One thing I dislike about a lot of videos is that if you start with this thing where it's like, now I'm not saying that I'm right, or I'm not saying this is fact, you're already backing up knowing that you're acknowledging that you're going to be getting hate. Like, it's kind of like, I understand in the case of like highly debated topics where it's like you have to emphasize that if the video you're talking about is entirely like opinion based, where you're only talking about the things you like and dislike, I would understand that. But as she says in this intro, I'm going to be bringing up some facts and opinions. And fellas, the facts that she brings up, I don't even know if they qualify as facts sometimes. They are, in fact, interviews that she does have, but she doesn't continue the rest of the interviews. So there's that. And second of all, this sounds like a lot of backpedaling. A lot of what subjectivism, people who subscribe to subjectivism as like their go-to will like use this as a way to avoid criticism. And this has been 2 minutes of her avoiding criticism, putting up a shield before the video even starts. Because she knows that what she's saying might be misconstrued, might not misconstrued, but not appreciated. She even says it. People are going to get mad about this on both sides. And I don't even know if she understands, like, why they're going to get mad from both sides. Because if it was just one side, it'd be understandable. But the fact that she knows that it's going to be both sides is interesting.
All I wanted to say is that, like, because you mentioned the subjectivity aspect, but, you know, she is talking about, like, you know, this is criticism, and, you know, she can make claims all she wants, and those are, you know, provable or disprovable. And, like, well, like, one weird thing she said, like, very minor, but, you know, she said, oh, Madoka on my list is one of the most popular anime of all time. Those are two different things you're talking about. Like, the most popular anime of all time, or the most popular anime on my anime list, because my anime list ultimately just represents, like, a subset, like, of Western anime fans, which is already a subset of worldwide anime fans, which includes French, Japan, like countries that are, you know, Latin America, you know, like, yeah, Saint Seiya isn't the most popular anime on my anime list, but it's huge in Latin American countries, you know. So if you're talking about all-time favorite anime, then Madoka's going to start lowering in the ranks. Is it popular? Yes, it's a big success in Japan. It caught on pretty hard in the West. Like, that's not to diminish its success, but, you know, using my anime list, as has been historically shown in the EWB, is not necessarily a...
I've noticed people who use my anime list as their metric of success or quality tend to not understand what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's usually like a red flag where it's like, this person just doesn't understand the anime community, like, because they're not looking past their part of the anime community.
She's been weird about it this entire video. Like, her wording in general is just so weird. Like, she mentions that, like, it's nigh impossible to find someone in the community who hasn't heard of Madoka. Do you know how many people have come through my server and I mentioned Madoka, and like I've at least had, like, if we're gonna lowball it, there's been at least 20 people who, like, go through and they'll go, what's...
Well, look, I got into anime relatively, like, I got into it in 2012, and, like, hearing, like, talking to people, like, I'll be like, yeah, Kill la Kill, Sword Art Online, I started those when they aired, you know? And that's uncommon. Like, relatively speaking, I've been into anime for a while, but I don't feel that way because I got into it in 2012, right? So, of course, there's a lot of people who haven't seen Madoka, because for a lot of people, it's going to be that show that they've heard about, but they just haven't gotten around to. And, you know, it's gotten discussion, but, and it's still relevant, like, because, yeah, we just got Magia record this year. We are getting a sequel eventually, but it also hasn't had a continuation in, like, 5 years now. And yeah, I kind of understand where she's coming from, because, yeah, when I did get into anime, like, Madoka was on Netflix after a point. It got a lot of discussion in 2011, 2012, because it was a big deal. And so, like, because of those two things, like, yeah, when someone said, oh yeah, I hadn't watched Madoka, I just had a feeling of, that's interesting, because, like, for me, it was bigger than, it felt really big, you know? So again, I kind of understand where she's coming from, but again, when you're trying to talk about the worldwide anime community, and you're using Mal and Crunchyroll as your metrics for said worldwide anime community, then, like, there's an inherent lack of understanding there.
Did she mention sales at all? Because I don't think she did.
No, she exclusively used metrics that only Western anime fans have real access or care for.
She used metrics taken entirely from, like, from Mal, from Crunchyroll. No, it was only Mal and Crunchyroll. Right. And then, like, hearsay, like, the rest of that was like, it is this, without showing me proof that it was this. And it's like, okay,
Right, so, like, is it doom breaking for, or breaking for any of her later points? No, but it's we're already off to not a great start.
It's highlighting
what
a lot
we're trying to point. Yeah.
Put it this way: this is the least offensive thing this entire video. I'm only pointing it out because to me it's weird. It's the weirdest intro I've ever watched, and this is like the least bad thing. If the video was like this, I'd be like, that was weird. and then I click off the video and never talk about it again.
I guess another thing we should preface is so because like again with that again the Madoka is a deconstruction crowd. You get people, and the fact that it was so popular with Western anime fans is you kind of get the Evangelion thing where it's good because it's different from other magical girl things. But we both like magical girl things that we've seen. Like I think I've seen like 3 or 4. No, I've seen 5 complete seasons of Precure. You've seen 2 complete seasons.
2 complete, like 2 unfinished that I'm still watching.
Right. And I think we've we've both watched like I've finished Cardcaptor Sakura.
I'm still watching Cardcaptor Sakura.
Yeah, you started it. So we both like and enjoy other magical girl series that both predate Madoka and have come after it. I think. And so like like when I talk about, if I were to just summarize how I feel like about Madoka as an aspect of that, an entry in the magical girl genre, is it a little bit more grim in tone than average? Probably. But at the end of the day, it's like how I see it is it's basically takes everything that is magical girls and just like condenses it into an incredibly dense 12 episode and 1 film package, because the ideas it's exploring have been in the genre for ages. And if you'd watched Ojamajo Doremi, Pretty Cure, fucking Cardcaptor Sakura, like probably Sailor Moon, that's important one that I haven't touched.
I'll talk about Sailor Moon because I know she brings it up. I think she does. Or at least I pretty much remember she mentioned Sailor Moon in some way, shape, or form. And here's another key indicator of people who don't know what they're talking about when it comes to magical girls. When they mention Sailor Moon and mention the words cute and innocent and like all that shit. Hello.
Well, I don't remember what she says, but we'll see later.
I'll get to that because it's really funny to me. Anybody who mentions those things when talking about Sailor Moon. But we'll get to that.
No, yeah, absolutely. Like Madoka, like I think the one difference Madoka does have is the overall tone is a bit more bleak, because by nature of the world and conflict is that like everything is fundamentally fucked for magical girls, right? And like that is a bit different from at least from what I know of Sailor Moon, and another one that I haven't seen, but Minky Momo, which is notable because it apparently opened the door for magical girl series to explore darker themes, because partway through the show the main character gets hit by a car and dies. She gets better, but the fact that she had such like a normal like death on screen was like notable for a show that was for children, or made with them in mind, right? So like the fact that whenever a Madoka video, like if the only, and that's another like red flag, is how many other magical girl series is it really mentioning? And if it's only Sailor Moon, I don't remember what else it mentions, but we should probably keep watching.
Sailor Moon is the litmus test for most people's intelligence when it comes to magical girls, but we'll get to that.
Madoka's premise is relatively simple. A girl named Madoka must struggle with the decision of whether or not to become a magical girl. She does this in a world where the deal comes with strings attached. And by strings I mean garrote wire that you can't see until you've plowed headlong into it. Magical girls inevitably become witches, who are then hunted and killed by more magical girls. In return for feeding this cycle, they receive a single wish to use however they please. All of Madoka's friends either become or already are magical girls, and one by one they meet terrible ends. At the same time, a mysterious girl named Homura has a vested interest in keeping Madoka from joining them. I won't hesitate to say that Madoka has a good story. It's a great anime, and as a piece of media, it works very well. But this isn't the same as saying it's something that I like, or something that I agree with in terms of theme or philosophy. What I mean to say is that Madoka is successful in evoking its desired emotions in the audience. The show is tightly written, and tells the story in a way that more often than not leads the viewer to buy into the ideas it presents. And it convinces the viewer that the narrative and characters reach natural ends brought about exclusively by their actions within the created universe's rules. When we watch Madoka, it successfully convinces us of a cause and effect relationship between what the girls do and what happens to them. Deft writing and clean, creative visuals portray a world of karmic balance to the audience. This is vital for a show that deals heavily in themes best summed up by the phrase, "you reap what you sow." The question here is whether or not we should also be buying into the conclusions that Madoka Magica draws when running parallel to our own reality.
So,
you can go ahead.
She's making some bold claims there. Like, the one that gets me is, the characters and their circumstances are purely due to their own actions, which is not the case at all. Because they were lied to by someone who wants to entrap them in a system that is fundamentally broken and there to screw them over.
No, Craftsdwarf, the children should have known what they were doing. Craftsdwarf, the literal children who were lied to by a guy who's smarter than them should know what they were doing.
The karmic balancing isn't balancing or rather, it's balancing some the wishes, the mistakes that they are making. This is where my video focused on with how by using magic to solve their problems, they are fundamentally failing. They are not doing things on their own power. That is their problem. By using it's the genie wishes, but it's not like
it's not. So it's not. So it's like one thing if they're just making these decisions on their own, where it's like I'm gonna be a magic girl, and then they just get the power magically. It's not like there was an intergalactical alien who's smarter and wiser than them, manipulating these children who are innocent and don't know much about the world into doing what they wanted to. You might as well say the children who were killed by Bondrewd should have known what they were doing.
No, shut up. But no, I was gonna say because what your video pointed out was the reason they were able to be exploited was because of their love, which is the key word there, exploited. Them being stuck in this system, brought into the system and to die is horrible. And the fact that the system isn't taken down yet because the series isn't over. The girl, lady who made the video hasn't even watched Rebellion, so she's inherently talking about an incomplete story that is. But she's not caught up. See, and this is one thing I kind of bring up. I like to bring up a lot when talking about a series from an authoritative voice, in that you should know the series better than the people you're talking to. And if you have not finished the series, you are inherently less knowledgeable about the series than the people you are talking to. Because someone who's watched Madoka, who's done the incredibly difficult act of watching a 12-episode anime and a film, knows more about Madoka than this YouTuber.
Do you work out the library? Dude, that's so Chadley, man. You watch a series to completion? That's crazy. How did you do that? No, but
how sad.
It's so it's because she spends all. That's what makes now, because I forgot that was one of the things that was one of the things she mentions in the comments, and mentions that she's never seen Rebellion. But this entire intro spends this whole time talking about Madoka's history. Madoka has a success, it's the most successful anime of all time. Apparently did all that research, quote unquote, but you didn't watch the movie that was the literal conclusion to the story and is canonical.
Right, she even said this there are things in Madoka that aren't addressed by fans, but it's because they've been addressed in the movie.
No, half this video as we get into it is she just says things, and the entire time we were watching it before, we watched this half a year ago when we were conceptualizing the EWBs, and we were sitting here and we were hello, this is all in the movie. And I think one of the people who we were watching with us commented on the video and asked them about told them about the Rebellion, and then the reply was just, I haven't seen Rebellion. Okay.
Yeah, and that's just it just reeks of bad faith. Okay, well, she said she doesn't like Madoka. That's fine. She's not obligated to give Madoka the time of day. But she's making a video, again, where she's speaking authoritatively when she's also fully admitting that she hasn't finished the series, at least to the level that we can today. I don't care about Magia Record. It's garbage. Don't watch it. It's not worth your time. But Rebellion, it directly continues the story of Madoka, and thus, if you are interested... Well, because, her argument was that Madoka is well-written, therefore you feel things... But you buy into its messages, even though their messages are bad.
What's interesting is the way she words that is kind of I hate this idea that media is emotionally manipulative. I mean,
it is.
It's literally made.
Manipulation is a tool. Every piece of media is manipulative.
This video is emotionally manipulative.
What she's arguing is that it's tricking people into believing bad things or ignoring them because they're too stupid to notice it, or too stupid to notice that the manipulation, I guess, which I think is absurd. Look, fiction doesn't mind control you and make you believe little girls dying is badass. And if that's not the case, then citation needed.
Look,
give me an
listen.
example where someone watched Madoka, and, like a swaths of people, like enough to be like to consider this work legitimately harmful. Like that's not how fiction works. We recognize fiction as fantasy, which is something we're gonna get into when she talks about Moe.
Wait. Now you say it like that, and then I think about the intro and the fact that it's Sayaka in the intro. I'm like, oh my god, is this like something she like when she was watching Madoka? Was she like conditioned into believing that children dying is badass, little girls dying is badass, but then suddenly realized like Sayaka in the intro that she was wrong? After,
That's
like,
what I always wonder, because there is this huge contingent of people who legitimately believe that fiction somehow like if you watch porn, you'll become a degenerate monster. Like, shit, I left Pornhub on autoplay. I mean, I'm a serial killer now.
I mean, I talked to Vindy on the Weeb Club, so like, let's be fair here. No, but like, it's so funny, right?
That's the funniest part, because they have to recognize that they watch this media, therefore they are making themselves vulnerable to the same thing they're claiming is manipulating other people to thinking bad things.
Dude, oh my god, when I watched like Naruto and I saw that Obito like.
I watched Shield Hero, and then every time I saw
Premium ass noodles,
I was like, slavery is badass. We should reinstate it, because Shield Hero made me think slavery was good.
Like, no, and, I mean, don't. I just I'm gonna no, but it's so funny to me that people say that the media like affects them, and they're the ones talking about it. And when you listen to them talk about it, it's like, well, when I watched Madoka Magica, I didn't suddenly then feel the urge to then manipulate children into killing themselves and each other. Like, that wasn't something that crossed my mind when I watched Madoka Magica when I was in high school. So, like,
yeah,
what was up with you? Like, what?
And that's the other thing, is it tends to come from people who have these bad faith readings that are like trying to make things out to be as bad as possible. And it's like, well, what if you were paying attention and realized that actually ideologically, I think Madoka is pretty fucking solid.
I also think ideologically, Madoka Magica like goes tries to go against these bad things by highlighting how bad these bad things are.
Right.
But anyway, look, I'm not allowed to have bad things in my media and then criticize it, because then I'm advocating for the bad things. Let's play the video.
When I say Madoka bad, I'm not saying it's something you shouldn't enjoy. By all means, keep cosplaying Mami, ship Madoka and Homura, draw yourself a magical girl Sona. That expression of love and appreciation is something fantastic, and I in no way want to cast some sort of shadow upon it, mock it, or question its purity due to the source material. When I say Madoka bad, I mean that Madoka as a work of fiction has some troubling implications in its story, and beyond that, the people that created it may not have had pure intentions. In fact, the conception of Madoka itself may have been more a malicious act than anything else.
Oh my god.
But in order to understand why I think that, we need to look at two things: the magical girl genre as a whole, and Gen Urobuchi, Madoka's writer. Magical girl refers to a genre of anime that popped up in the 1960s and has since slowly evolved into its current, highly recognizable form.
Bro.
Hallmarks of the genre include a focus on adolescent girls, cute animal companions, and transformation sequences. These shows almost always feature an unabashed and extremely feminine aesthetic, meant to appeal to an audience made up of mostly young girls. With that sort of target demographic, magical girl shows have often worked as advertisements for toys, much in the vein of American Saturday morning cartoons like Transformers. Leaving our definition there would be doing the genre a severe injustice, though, as it's often been noted that the magical girl genre evolved alongside the women's liberation movement in Japan, and has served as a source of empowerment for girls for decades. At its core, these shows portray young women made more capable than anyone else. Heroines are more than able to conquer evil and their own fears, and they often find strength and comfort in bonds between women. The major overtones of solidarity and friendship are essential to nearly every work, and quite commonly these shows are a space where quote-unquote girly things, like love, are treated as important rather than flighty. Enter Gen Urobuchi, a writer well known for dark and nihilistic themes with an extensive history of work under his belt. Director Akiyuki Shinbo and producer Atsuhiro Iwakami ask Urobuchi to write a dark take on the magical girl genre for them. Iwakami requested a heavy anime featuring copious amounts of violence and blood. He envisioned a series in which magical girls would be frequently killed off. This was meant to contrast heavily with the genre's standard fare, a concept that would be played with further in the series' misleading marketing campaign. Urobuchi was more than happy to comply, and the writer would end up steering the anime down a path that even Shinbo and Iwakami hadn't imagined.
Real quick, is there a citation for any of this in the comments?
Let's check.
Or in the description?
Let's check her citations. I'm gonna put the picture of Pause and Select saying please cite your shit real quick on screen.
People need to cite their shit.
No, there isn't.
Oh,
Not a single citation. There is a link to her Discord though and her Twitter.
that's interesting.
No,
That
listen.
she's putting words in the mouths of these creators without being able to back up them saying these words.
I'm looking for that citation. Joe from Pause and Select's about to come walk down here and ask you for your citation. Do you have it? No, you don't.
That's sad.
Before you keep going, can I please just point out that she continues to use Sayaka clips when she's talking about herself. It's the funniest thing ever because she's like, it's like she mentions like the walking into the shadows and things as she's got Sayaka walking into the shadows. I'm like, what why is it Sayaka specifically that you're attaching to? It's so funny. And then then she mentions like she brings up like the whole magical girls, like what they are.
It is as a genre. I mean, was a reading fair? Sure. Are there a lot of other things you could say about Magical Girls series? Yes. Does Madoka touch on those things? Yes.
It's like clockwork, right? It's like when I see someone on Twitter talk about like how an author doesn't know the inherent appeal of their series, and my first thought is like, the first thing you're going to mention is Naruto, isn't it? And then I scroll down their reply, and it's literally the first thing's Naruto. It's like this. Whenever somebody starts talking about the magical girl genre, I'm like, the first thing they're going to show is Sailor Moon, isn't it? And like clockwork, she literally plays she plays fucking Moonlight Densetsu. I'm like, okay, dude. Yeah. All right. Well, let's keep going because she expands upon that, I think, and it's gonna.
Right. No, there's other things I want to comment on, but I just want to stop because I was curious about sources, of which don't exist in pinned comments or description, and
it's literally not that hard. You do this in high school.
Like, man, imagine if producing anime was that easy. Hey, dude, can you make a Magical Girl series with lots of blood? Yeah, dude. I
100% bet that's how it went down in the writers' room. They just looked again. Urobuchi and said, "Hey guys, I want the magical girls to die. Can you do that?"
Does she know about one of the specific inspirations Gen Urobuchi mentioned for Hidamari's sketch was, which was done by Studio Shaft. What like Aoki Ume, the manga author for Hidamari's sketch, did the character designs for Madoka Magica.
Well, you also have to consider this is the same guy who wrote Fate Zero and something like, and eventually would go on after Madoka to direct Kamen Rider Gaim, which
I haven't watched either of those actually.
You haven't seen Fate Zero?
No.
That's interesting.
I decided that my first entry into Fate would be the visual novel, and I dropped it. So I decided, well, I guess I'm not touching anything Fate. That's not a dojo.
So sad. But like, no. So like, it's interesting because like she mentions Gen Urobuchi. I'm like, Gen Urobuchi's almost like bread and butter are like these tragic stories of multiple different individuals fighting and almost like fighting in vain is like a big thing. Fate Zero is cited by a lot of people to be like inspired by traditional Greek tragedy or something like that. And of course Kamen Rider Gaim is Kamen Rider Gaim's gotten the meme of, what if HBO adapted Kamen Rider? The most fitting one would be Gaim because it's darker than everything else, is the meme. And like, for a reason. Gen Urobuchi stories usually revolve around these types of situations. So it's not that they went up to Gen Urobuchi and said, "Hey, Gen Urobuchi, could you just kill magical girls for no reason?" They said, "Hey, can you make a magical girls series?" And you'd seen the best fit to make something that'd be like a darker take. And obviously, writers' rooms are not that simple. You don't just go into a writer's room and then say, "Hey, guys, I have an idea for a series. What is it? Little boy won't get in robot." Get to writing, Hideaki Anno.
It's if someone who's actually written something, it's far more complex to try and even come up with the idea for something, let alone getting it approved by a committee and going into like a major month to multi-year long production cycle that will produce something that people want to be producers want to be successful. It's such a gross simplification of both like anime production process and individual involved that, again, bad faith. It's
there's something else I'm noticing, right? Where a lot of these people who cite My Anime List also assume the intentions of the author.
Well, that's just a very. I mean, I'd say that it's more that that's because assuming the intention of the author is just the norm, because people like to put themselves above the author and believe themselves to be smarter than them, even though often case it's not.
No, but I know the mind. I know.
So it's more that like you're talking about two Venn diagrams and there's a big amount of overlap because they're
almost
both really
a circle.
big.
They're almost a circle.
Well, I mean the problem with assuming the intent of the authors goes way beyond anime fans is my point.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, for all these EWBs, every time someone mentions my anime list, they also, like, at the same time, for every video, assume the intentions of the author, like, almost, like, consistently.
And doing so is almost entirely, like, 99% of the time, done in bad faith, which, let's get some more of that bad faith. Everyone sit down and pray. Pray for me.
Please.
What Urobuchi created was Madoka as we know it today, a series that takes a cynical look at the world of magical girls, where girls who believe in wishes will inevitably self-destruct. This in itself is not a bad thing. In fact, it's incredibly interesting and is in part why Madoka is such a success. But there's just, there's this sort of weird undertone to the way Urobuchi talks about the series. His attitude at times feels almost spiteful, like he's a little too happy to have created a series that tortures little girls. Let's take one of his most infamous quotes from an interview in Japanese newspaper Asahi Shimbun. "I've received a request to write a bloody story where magical girls appear and then drop out one by one. I paid attention to the aspects that are troubling or overlooked in the traditional magical girl genre. I've been thinking that magical girls who have acquired superhuman abilities will find themselves removed from the world, which would cause contradictions and reactions. Magical girls who are full of hope and strive to save people soon suffer from hatred and jealousy, which turns them into the enemy witches. The change from good to evil left an emotional impact. For example, Al-Qaeda brought down the Twin Towers due to their self-righteousness. Justice for some people is an evil for others. Good intentions, kindness, and hope will not necessarily make people happy."
Yeah, let's pause and try and find that.
Yeah. So while Craftsdwarf's trying to find the interview, I just kind of want to point out that, fellas, she's basing a lot of her belief in this, like, that Madoka's, like, Genrobuchi's intentions for making Madoka were bad, based off of, like, this idea that she has that Genrobuchi said that Al-Qaeda's based and thought they were right or something. It's like, look, when I first watched this video and I saw Al-Qaeda come up, I think because we watched this with a bunch of other people before. I watched this, and the moment Al-Qaeda came up, everybody started laughing because there's something like from the way this is structured, right? It feels like it's like cut out of context, but things were moved around. But even if you look at what he's saying, there's the idea of what Urobuchi's saying. Even in that excerpt, it's literally like. The first part was fair. If you're a magical girl and you have powers that are like above, that are above everybody, like different from everybody else, you're going to be removed from the majority of most people, which is literally a point in a lot of magical girl series. There's a reason why magical girls in every single series that they have, be it Sailor Moon, Cardcaptor Sakura, or even like Precure, they keep their powers a secret from everybody else. And they have to deal with things that nobody else does, because an inherent part of magical girl series is that idea of like adolescence. And when you're adolescent and you're growing up, you feel like you have struggles that nobody else has that are unrelatable to other people. You feel like you're alone in that conflict. So it capitalizes that on this idea of having powers that nobody else can have, and doing things and struggles of the world that nobody else feels aside from you. That's like an entire point of the whole genre. So that assertion that Genrobuchi makes is just kind of correct, and is just correct. And again, they're talking about the emotional impact of the series and talking about the karmic burden. And if you know anything about a lot of like other magical girl series, one that immediately comes to mind is Heartcatch Precure, where like some like the powers of like what a lot of like this is common in Kamen Rider too, where it's like the powers of the characters, they're things they're fighting. Or like either the inverse or like the corrupted version, whatever their powers are. So it's kind of like this cycle. Like sometimes, like, there's a character in Heartcatch Precure whose name is Dark Precure, created to be the inverse of of Cure Moonlight, which is like an entire point of the whole series. There's also Sailor Moon. every time I see people mention Sailor Moon and they bring up this idea that Sailor Moon is like innocent and cutesy and like there's no if you watch any scene of like a fight scene in Sailor Moon and you see them like suffocating, almost dying of suffocation, getting like, you know,
well, you've
tortured.
described how like the monsters in Sailor Moon will just kill people. Like,
yeah, one of the characters in Sailor Moon is Sailor Saturn, who is a character whose power is genocide, destroys entire planets because that's her. Literally the Sailor Senshi of death, of destruction. There's literally a destruction god in Sailor Moon. Characters die, like they get murked in Sailor Moon, right? That's just the thing that happens. And every time I hear someone say like cutesy and innocent, and they're like selflessness is a thing that comes up a lot. And like, have you met Sakino Usagi? She's one of the most selfish characters of all time. That's like one of her defining character traits.
I was kind of not listening to the start of that, so I have no idea what you're talking about now because I was looking for the interview. I did find it. It will be linked. So apparently, I guess the quote that those 3 quotes are real. Supposedly, I saw in comments to some discussion on Reddit that like the full interview was badly translated on Tumblr. In fact, this might be part of that bad translation. But it's 3 quote lines from an interview. Like, apparently, yeah. So where's the rest of the interview? Like, you can't just take something out of context. Like, I don't like that. Is his comparison necessarily like I get what he's trying to say. I don't think that it's the greatest comparison because like, yeah, no person believes they're doing like they're evil, they're doing a bad things. And in the case of like the Madoka characters, like Sayaka's a good example. She thinks she's doing the right thing, even if what she's doing is wrong. Is she a terrorist? No, she does kill people, or it's heavily implied that she fucking murders 2 people on a fucking subway or a train. Like, no, yeah, it was a train.
It was a train, yeah.
Right. So it's like, you know, but like obviously that's a reach to get to fucking Al Qaeda. But, you know, I mean, like, just to I guess to talk about that for a second, how many children, local children do you need bombed before you go, you know what, maybe the people who did this aren't good and they should be stopped? Like, yeah, he's still a horrible religious extremist, but, like, let's not pretend there aren't legitimate reasons to want to be part of a group like that, especially if they're the only ones maybe doing something. So, like, there's nuance there that, do I necessarily agree with Urobuchi's analogy? No, but again, like, she's bringing up this like quoted interview, possibly from like a bad translation that doesn't include the entire interview, because maybe it was followed up with the person who was interviewed going, shut the fuck up, that was stupid, so why did you say that?
Well, we don't even know, because I mean, you look for this interview,
we have no idea.
Like, it's when you look at this and we only ever see this section of the interview. Something should be, like, your neurons should be going off in your head that this isn't the entirety of the interview. Like, I'm looking at this, and whenever I look at this, it always just felt weird, but it's only these 3 lines that are ever brought up. Because when you look up interviews from any other, like, from like a mangaka, for example, it's like this long thing.
I found 2 other Urobuchi interviews on the same website that were complete, and they weren't irrelevant, so I didn't read them, but, like...
It's just weird that this one specifically is the only one that's only has these 3 lines.
Usually when you're quoting someone, you're only including like part of the quote. It's done to make them look as bad as possible. So like... It's
a common journalism thing. But aside from that, right, within that same...
Common bad journalism thing, I want to add there. Because like Anime News Network has the resources. They could have just translated this entire thing. Why didn't they? Why did they just publish this one brief quote? Like, from, I mean, Anime Newswork isn't the best website, but, you know, sometimes that's the only source for some of this shit, but,
very sad.
Anyway.
So, okay. The metaphor Urobuchi uses here is in really bad taste. Honestly, it would be a breeze to engage in some ad hominem here and imply that such an awful turn of phrase proves that he is unnecessarily cruel in his writing and kind of just shitty in general. However, I want to take a more generous viewpoint here. Mind you, his character and how it relates to the show are in question, but this quote alone isn't grounds to overreact and get judgmental. What Urobuchi is saying here is that the girls are ultimately misguided. Their thoughts and feelings cause them to make decisions that lead to self-destruction, even though they start out with the purest of intentions. This is the crux of the show's philosophy. Each girl acts on a whim and buys into a too-good-to-be-true deal, only to realize after it's too late that they didn't have all the information and will have to pay the piper with their lives. It's dramatic irony delivered with flashy style and flawless execution. And that's what leads the viewer to believe in the inevitability of the tragedy that is Madoka Magica. All the girls are flawed, they make mistakes, and have to pay for them. It makes sense, doesn't it? I think it's sort of easy to get caught up in the dark, fantastical grandeur of Madoka Magica and forget what we're seeing. Obviously, the world illustrated here is a cruel one, and the fates the girls meet aren't fair. What makes the show work, however, is that we're made to believe that their fates are equivalent to their actions, whether they were aware of it or not. When we see Sayaka turn into a witch, it stings, but in an oh, what a cruel world way. Not in a manner that makes us doubt the writing. Madoka Magica's ability to elicit that response from its audience is what makes it such a strong work of fiction. But we need to remember our viewpoint here. We're looking at this from outside the show, a place where we can take the real world into account. Sayaka's crime was wishing for her crush's hands to heal, and she dies for it. Isn't that a little extreme? It is extreme. That's the point of the show. That might be your go-to answer, but remember the context. Remember that this is a magical girl show. We're told within the text that Sayaka's real crime was that she wanted Kyosuke to be grateful and indebted to her, and while that could be true on some level, it's equally easy to believe that she just wanted to heal him. She could be a young girl who wanted him to be better because she had a crush on him, plain and simple. It's also likely that both could be true to an extent. People are three-dimensional. But Sayaka isn't a person, she's a character, lines of dialogue and cell after cell of animation. She's a tool used by an author to tell a story, and what Sayaka tells us is that we should shun and pity girls who would believe in such a silly fantasy.
Okay. So I just the thread of her
one thing,
continuing
just
to
how
project
this
on
is
this
framed real quick. Okay, I want to talk about how this is framed real quick, where it's saying like, oh, you think this because of the show. And maybe that was her initial takeaway, but I just don't like having my thoughts being spoken to, like someone trying to force their thoughts in my head. Like this is something that I thought, where it's like, I think my reading was a bit more, I had a bit more to say about it than that. Like how about the fact that like viewing these systems as like the fact that, she died, isn't that sad? But it was inevitable. No, the incubator, look, it's a thin line, but once you cross it, your third eye will open and you will understand Madoka. Everything Kyubey says is bullshit or should be taken with the knowledge that he is trying to abuse and exploit humanity. And whether it dies or not, he doesn't care. He just wants all the energy he can get. He's garbage. He's a piece of shit. The incubators should just be gone.
Episode 11 literally tells you that he's lying. Like,
basically,
it literally tells you that he's lying. If you watched episode 11 and didn't realize that man was lying, then you're like, you didn't watch it.
I mean, I think that's a common enough like misunderstanding that I'm because I just think he's exceptionally written as a manipulator to the fact that he's able to like trick so many actual human beings who watch the show.
Which is Craftsdwarf. That's why this is so funny, because she brought it back to Sayaka. Right. She brought it back to Sayaka again. This is the third time in the video.
No, I think she was her favorite character. And so, like, what happened to her not being positive was, like, maybe she didn't like that. But anyway, I want to go further. So the end of the series ends with Madoka changing the system. The end of Rebellion ends with Homura further changing the system. Of course, both of their actions were ultimately not completely correct because they didn't just get rid of incubators entirely. Because, like, Incubator said, oh, without us, humans would just be in caves. But, like, that's a fucking lie. I'm pretty sure, look around. Did incubators make what you have around you now? No. Humans can overcome. That's what Madoka's mom is there for in the series. She is a person who does not need magic to overcome. She wants to overcome her problems by herself. Where the issue with the magical girls in the series is that they're trying to use magic to solve their problems. The only reason Madoka's wish at the end of Madoka and the Homura's wish at the end of Rebellion are able to like change anything is because they're wishing for, or no, even Homura's wish to become a magical girl. They're wishing for the ability to fight. Like they're still it's still a problem because they're using a wish, but they're also still doing something of their own power. Madoka is fighting. Homura is fighting. Like they are wishes that push them into action, basically, instead of just wishes to like Sayaka didn't wish for Kyosuke for her to have a way to fight for him. She wished for his sake. Like, she just wished for the miracle. So, like, of course, so it became a curse because, again, wishes and this magical good intent becomes bad intent because, again, the systems are fundamentally wrong. And so her saying that, oh, it's just inevitability? No, it's not. If they could change the systems, and they can change the systems into a way where the incubators aren't there, and that's presumably where the last series, because again, going back to like Madoka just doing things other magical girl series do, it's not uncommon for magical girls to lose their powers at the end of a magical girl series. I've watched 2 seasons of Ojamajo Doremi, and it's happened in 2 seasons of Ojamajo Doremi, right? So like using the magical girls as like a growing up thing, and then letting go of that childishness is just a normal magical girl thing. So the idea of like them getting rid, like, you know, Kyubei, a character who is exploiting their childish innocence, them letting go of him and getting rid of all the incubator influence on human history being a positive, like that seems to be where the series is going, you know, based on not just what Madoka's narrative is, but also just magical girl series, right? So like,
it's just,
she's just wrong, I think, about not just Madoka, but about, you know, but again, saying if this is like, oh, but because she, you know, this is a magical girl series. Yeah, that's why the series is doing this, because it's just a coalescence. It's just a, you know, again, a dense package of what magical girl series are.
Yeah, it's the strangest thing the way she's like framing this. Like she goes, Gen Urobuchi obviously holds contempt for these girls who are stupid, and it's like, no, like Sayaka's entire thing is more so just it's like, that's why like my video where I talk mainly about the conflict, like the concept like love is like a big thing, where it's like the reason why Sayaka, the things happened to her was because ultimately she grew to not love herself. It was this thing where it's like she wanted Kyosuke's love, but did something, but didn't fight for it. She just kind of wished for his thing to be healed, and then when she realized that I don't have my soul's in this gem now, I'm an empty husk, she just decided that she wasn't worthy of his love instead of just accepting that and going forward. It's literally just a message that you're supposed to be taking away from it. Like, Gen Urobuchi doesn't hate children or something. That's not a, like...
Yeah, and her reading, she, like, kind of, like, assumes things. Like, she doesn't have a complete picture of Sayaka's character, even though, like, she recognizes her as, like, a storytelling tool for the message of the story. But she's, like, very you know, she doesn't give a solid reading of her character. She just gives a bunch of, like, potentials, as if it's... Because I feel it's pretty clear, watching the series, and... You know, there's, like, again, we both talk about Sayaka in each of our individual videos, and between those, I think, you know, you have some good readings into her character. That makes sense, and of why she does things. Like, you know, she was trying to help Kyosuke, and she wasn't fighting for her love. She was he's healed, therefore he will love me. Like, there's a huge jump in logic there, and it didn't work out that way because she was making a mistake, which, again, is part of Madoka's, you know, failure, and overcoming that failure. And, you know,
It's a very, like, she's, ironically, by her saying that Gen Urobuchi and the media of Madoka Magica is manipulating you, she is inherently trying to manipulate you, the viewer, into like, seeing that, oh, actually, it's like this, when she's providing no real, like, the only example she's shown me is three sections from an interview cut out of context, where Gen Urobuchi says something about Al-Qaeda. Like, there's also the fact that she hasn't actually finished what's out there of the series, where Rebellion also addresses the topic of self-love as being an entire thing. Also,
well, that's another big, like, magical girl thing, which I'll hopefully talk about later. But where it's just a trope that I've seen in many magical girl things, and Madoka just, like, goes a little more into it, like, on it, and that's it. Like, just, again, doing something other magical girl series already do. But anyway.
All right, let's go.
That there's something wrong with a young lady being naive and hopeful, wanting to ally with justice and heal the person she fancies. What girls like this need is a slap on the wrist, a reminder not to dream too big lest they crash and burn. There's something sinister about it when you pull back and look at Madoka not as a story to consume and enjoy, but as a work of fiction that expresses the views of the author. I can't pretend I know what kind of person Gen Urobuchi is, or what he thinks and feels, but when I consider his comments and the nature of his work, I begin to feel that Madoka is less a deconstruction of the magical girl genre and more a mockery of it.
just wanted to laugh at that.
Dude, it's a mockery of the
Like-
magical girl genre by being everything that the magical girl genre is.
Well, it's like, she goes from one wrong take to another is the funnier part, where it's like, because I didn't realize that she's mentioned that. I didn't remember that she mentioned that in this video, because I even said before, it's like, yeah, she basically just explained the two bad takes. It's like, you either die thinking Madoka's a deconstruction, or you live long enough to think it's a mockery of Magical Girl series.
Oh my god.
But like, no, both of those are wrong. And again, like, her reading isn't strong enough to convince me that she knows what she's talking about. So like a lot of what she's saying is ultimately based in these bad faith reading or just readings of the work. And so it's like, well, sad.
It's just so baffling to me the way this video is structured and the way she keeps tiptoeing this line. So there's this line of that I like to call like, I'm not saying this, but, and she's like happy feeding all over that line right now, where she's like saying, I'm not saying I know Gen Urobuchi's intentions, but I know Gen Urobuchi's intentions by if you look at this, and this. I'm
right, well, like,
she says in the video too, where it's like, you're not. It's like I'm not saying that like if you watch this, you're a bad person. Then she puts on those tap shoes, dances on the line, and says, "But if you watch this, you got to realize you're being manipulated and believe in these things. And if you like the show, you're advocating for these bad things." And it's like, okay,
No, yeah, and she does say, like, some of the things she says, like, taken at face value, like, I do agree with, where it's like, she's, like, fine with people liking Madoka, but also but then it's problematic, so if you like it, you're liking problematic stuff, right? So it's like, where the thing she says, like, even after we were talking about, the quotes and like, she says about Sayaka, where it's like, she's, like, partway there, but she's not all the way there. And that's the problem. So.
And she's not just assuming the intentions of Gen Urobuchi, she's assuming the intentions of people who like Madoka, which is probably like the best if she's going to like, which is why like it makes me interested why she said that thing at the beginning where it's like, I know I'm going to get some hate for this. Well, maybe you're getting some hate for this because you're assuming that people who like Madoka are advocating for the death of children.
Dead little girls, right, before making mistakes when No.
My friend, I like Love Live. I don't think so.
Yeah, no, exactly. We both think that they should all die for making mistakes in Love Live.
Man, Chica should have just drowned herself.
Chica got a 0, should have just drowned.
Like,
if you hate yourself, you should just die.
Suicide is badass.
We're so terrible. If she watches this, she's gonna be like, these people are worse than Gen Urobuchi.
Oh my god. She's assuming my intentions too now?
Let's go further. Kyubey is generally regarded as the villain of Madoka, but his position is unique. He's a play on the mandatory magical animal companion, looking cute as a button and coaching the girls on how to use their powers.
That man does not look cute.
Kyubey
He
is
looks
willfully
fucking evil.
duplicitous, though. He never outright lies, but he does omit information in order to manipulate the girls to his ends.
I hate him.
Kyubey is portrayed as cruel and conniving, but ultimately logical. Even if he's destroying lives, it's for a greater good, to prevent entropy by the most mathematically efficient means. Kyubey is both attacked and lauded for his actions within the metatext of Madoka. He's cast as an antagonist, but he's also right.
Okay. Remember what I said earlier about how, like, the line that you need to cross to understand Madoka is that Kyubey is not right? And that he's wrong, and that the incubator should just be should not be involved with humanity at all. She just, like, this is like, yeah, she doesn't get it, right? Like, this is, like, I'm not even saying, like, oh, I'm elite, I understand Madoka. No, I made videos because I want to help people try to understand Madoka the way I do. Like, if she'd talk to me, I'd be like, let's talk about Madoka, because she's coming from a good place. Even if I don't think she's coming, like, she's not correct, but ultimately her intentions are good, and maybe she would listen to, a better reading. Like, that's why I'm glad that we have our 2 videos, because I do think back to back that's like the best Madoka reading shit you're gonna get.
Craftsdwarf. Craftsdwarf.
But Kyubei's not fucking right, okay?
The meme is just real. She's literally Sayaka, dude.
Well, like, that's the thing.
There's no way this happens 4 times in a row, dude. It's like, it's crazy, dude. It's so funny.
Well, like, how does she say that, like, oh, you know, Sayaka dying, it was just inevitable, but that's a problem. But then she goes, you know, the guy who made Magical Girls, like, fucked up and horrible, he had a point.
He was based, dude. He was ahead of the curve on that one, you know.
Like maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe the fact that Kyubei sounds so correct is like why he's so powerful as a manipulator, and the fact that he's capable as a manipulator to the point that his species successfully manipulated humanity into dying for the rest of the universe. Like, let me remind you, in episode 10, when Witch Madoka destroys the city and is set to destroy the rest of Earth, Kyubei goes like, dang, we didn't get the rest of our energy. Oh, well, this is your problem now. Like, and then the next episode, he goes, hey, Madoka, if you die for us, humans will, don't worry, humans will be involved in galactic society eventually. Like, that's, you know, you're just dying for for a greater good, right? Wink, wink, wink. No, humans are dying for a greater good, and he doesn't give a shit.
There's literally
He's a liar.
There's literally a scene in Rebellion, which she hasn't watched, where Homura sits there and questions Kyubei. And the entire conversation reveals to Homura that he's been lying the entire time. He Kyubei was dancing around the question of like entropy and all this shit and all these things. And then finally Homura pinned him down and made him answer, why are you doing this? And he literally says it's for his own benefit. So it's like, hello? Like, well, of course she hasn't watched Rebellion, so she wouldn't know that. But like, even watching the show, he lies so not even like lying. He's like he's just omitting information. He's just omitting the information that he actually like has for them. Because there's certain scenes in the show where he does it himself. He tells them, "Oh, if you do this, you'll be fine." And then when it turns out that they could turn into witches, they question him. He goes, "I never said you wouldn't turn into witches." like hello? It's like the people. I got so many comments on my Bondrewd video. People saying that, "Oh, Bondrewd, you know, he might have killed all those children, dude, but he was making steps up for society. You know, he was making scientific advancements." And I'm like, yeah, he also
grinding
shoved
orphans
those
for the good of the world.
He also threw those children in an elevator. I'm like, oh yeah, man, you know, nice.
Because as we know, scientific progress justifies the death of innocent lives.
Oh my god.
But no, maybe that's wrong, and we should question those authorities and systems in place and seek to challenge them or change them, like Madoka and Homura do, and have the power to do further. They're just not at the point where they're ready to give up magic, like again, other magical series have done at the end. Like Madoka isn't yet. So
I legitimately don't understand how people like say that like Kyubei's right, because at all points he's just
you also
to be,
like you have come to know people who legitimately think Bondrewd did nothing wrong.
Yeah,
you know.
So
like we're talking about like people who are completely fine with huge amounts of systemic injustice, and that's a bigger problem than I watched Madoka and I think little girls dying is badass.
Here's the thing, right? Gen Urobuchi is sitting here telling you that Kyubei's wrong. Kyubei's evil. And you sit here saying that Gen Urobuchi's bad and Kyubei was right. Which makes me go a little, Which is like, you should be thinking about that. Because if you're going to make assumptions of the author and of the audience, you should be wondering what it is, the words that are coming out of your mouth, right? It's like, okay.
Well, yeah, this is like, because part of where I try to come from as like someone who reads into stories is like, I want to understand what the work is saying regardless of whether or not I agree with it. And like, that means, suspending how I feel about the subject matter at times, or and such, because as I find a lot of the media I consume I tend to agree with more often than not, but I'm still able to recognize the times when that's not true, and but if you let your emotions get in the way, you might because again, I feel like the people making these kind of readings about Madoka or Shield Hero or are seeing the thing, they want the thing to be bad, but they're not recognizing that the media is saying the thing is bad, but the way they're doing it is it's there to their argument becomes stronger if they show more of like Shield Hero, it has the main character conforming to slavery to exist in the world, but then it's like, actually this was him conceding on his beliefs was bad, right? But the fact that he conformed at all was bad to the people watching it, so therefore it's condoning slavery when that's not the case, because they're not looking at the whole story, they're not respecting the whole story and suspending their feelings and trying to see what it's actually trying to do and say.
Media inherently has to take the things that are wrong and put them to the forefront and have characters who believe those things are right in order to criticize them. Because you can't criticize someone for believing something they don't believe in, right? That's not
right. By like the aspect of her saying like, oh, Madoka like lets you get lost in its ideology even if it's bad, but it's like the way it's building its story, like at the end of the day, it is saying that the Kyubey is wrong, but it also like by giving as much like credence as possible to like when he says entropy needs to be stopped, like you can kind of understand that, but then ideologically you also still have to recognize that it's wrong, and the story does. So it's like again, the characters are children. They're not gonna fucking bust out a fucking philosophy paper and be like, actually, Kyubey, your points don't make sense there.
Which is kind of interesting to me, right? Is that anybody who gets mad at these girls, right? It's like they're children.
They're 12.
They don't know
they're
anything.
12 years old.
You're getting mad about these kids who are like, bro, I just came down here, saw like a cat was getting murdered, and then it told me to save it. Like, what did you want from me, right? Like, come on, dude. Oh my god. Play it, end my suffering.
Even at the end of the show, when Madoka reformats the universe, she's unable to eliminate the need for some version of the incubator's system. So what do we make of that? We have a writer who created a series with one purpose in mind, making magical girls suffer. This manifests as physical violence and mental trauma, and while the one putting them in that situation plays the role of antagonist, the show tells us that the girls' suffering is ultimately their own fault, a byproduct of their own naivety and foolishly fanciful ideals. It all starts to feel pretty rotten when you remember that the genre these adult men who created the show chose to target is one that tries to boost the esteem of little girls, one that traditionally imparts confidence and hope in things like friendship and love. Sure, you could try to spin Urobuchi's creation as bestowing a serving of cold, critical reality, but that's not what it feels like. It feels like they took a dump on the genre for sport. There's an important caveat here. I don't know Gen Urobuchi or what he was thinking when he penned Madoka. I'm not omniscient nor am I psychic, so I can't say for sure that his actions held malice. I think it's important to keep that in mind when engaging in this sort of speculation. There is another part of the why Madoka is bad equation that is clear and concrete though. Its legacy. Following Madoka's success, many other studios began churning out similar Dark Magical Girl series in attempts to secure a slice of the financial pie. Magical Girl site, Yuki Yuna is a Hero, and Magical Girl Raising Project all sprung up because anime where cute girls get either tortured or torture each other was in vogue. I gotta take a stance here and say that this is kind of fucked up. And yeah, I get that that's the point, that some people enjoy watching train crashes. But it tells us what a wide takeaway from Madoka was. There was a fresh and very responsive audience to a new kind of torture porn, one that targeted innocent young girls. It's sickening. Don't try and tell me it's about deconstruction of a genre, because it's not. Whether or not you could argue that these shows have their own nuance, it's impossible to deny that they exist first and foremost to make a profit off a sadistic trend. These new titles tend to feature much more straightforward abuse and trauma as well, making Madoka subtle by comparison. Madoka's creation wasn't an intentional rallying cry to kickstart the subgenre, but those shows are still a direct result of it. Regardless, the creative team behind Madoka Magica certainly knew what they were doing. The art style utilized within the show falls heavily into moe tropes.
I'm gonna die, dude. I'm gonna die.
So basically, producers who primarily care about money went, hey, sad magical girls, let's have more of those. That, like...
Kill more.
Let's not... Okay, so 2 points. 1, 0 of those shows have been as close to as successful as Madoka.
Not even close.
Not... They're... Like, notice how they've stopped? Like, yeah, it took a while, but they're not a thing anymore.
Let me put it this way, because of those shows that she mentions, I've seen both Maho Shoujo Ikase Keikaku, and I've seen Yuki Yuna wa Yusha de Aru, which is like... Basically, it's Madoka, but like both of those series... deal with this idea of like, so Yuki Yuna in particular deals with the topic of what it means to what it entails to be a hero, what you're willing to give up in order to save those that you love. And inherently it's about that. And sure, children die in it, but it also has some of those badass power-ups of all time. So it's almost like the inherent appeal is kind of like when people watch like a shonen, like when people watch a shonen series and then they see the Chadlier seinen and they go, wow, there's more blood and violence in this one. People don't watch seinen because, oh my god, it's I like to watch my characters get tortured. Their logic, even though it's wrong, is still this idea of like, I want a more like mature, just a different spin on it. So, and this idea that she's going on about where it's like, oh my god, people who watch this show like watch the children, like the children getting murdered. That's why they watch it. When you watch like Sailor Moon. So I remember this scene very vividly. There's this enemy the Sailor Scouts are fighting that like creates a shield around them. They can't get out of it, and every time they touch it, they get electrocuted. And then it slowly like crushes them. They're suffocating, they're running out of breath, and they're about to get crushed to death on screen on a show for children.
Damn, I can't believe Toei hates magical girls and wants them to suffer.
I can't believe I can't believe
give
the wife
young
of the,
Japanese viewers fetishes that they then turn into jojins. I mean, what?
I can't believe the wife of the writer of Hunter x Hunter decided like, man, I want these children to die. That's crazy, bro.
Well, apparently torture porn, or stuff like hyper violent stuff has never been a thing before. Like Akame got killed, not real. Saw. Nope, doesn't exist.
Well, like, if she's even gonna pull that shit, there's literally a series called Mahou Shoujo Lyrical Nana that predates Madoka by at least, like, let me look up real quick so I can be...
Oh, yeah! I haven't watched Nanaha, but I know about, like, the bully scene where some fucking kid, like, fucking brutalizes 3 people who are bullying her. Like, it's fucking damn.
So Mahou Shoujo Lyrical Nanaha premiered in 2004. And Mahou Shoujo Lyrical Nana, the first series, features a mother abusing their child, literally tying them up and whipping them because they didn't do what they wanted them to do. That is some.
Oh, but Madoka. Oh wait, no. I thought Madoka started the.
Madoka time traveled back in time, even though Mahou Shoujo Lyrical Nana has probably one of the like.
Want to know what other show started in 2004?
Oh what?
Futaro Precure. Was it super dark? No, but. It's still the most popular magical girl series, eclipsing Madoka, and it's still ongoing. Like, it never stopped, is my point. So, like, her point is that, dark magical girls are a thing, and that's Madoka's problem. The prevailing image of magical girl shows is very much Pretty Cure. Like,
it always has been. Pretty Cure is...
It always has, or not always has been, it has been since 2004.
Ever since then.
Right. It was a huge hit from the get-go, and it's been a mammoth that has never stopped. Like, even, it had, like, 5 weeks of hiatus for coronavirus, maybe a few other weeks, and it's, like, now, 16-plus year history. Like, it's huge.
There's something interesting,
and
sorry.
Madoka didn't stop or change, Precure at all. Like, Precure is the same as it always was.
Well, there's also something interesting that I remember she said something at the beginning of this video where she mentions that, like, Magical Girl series were primed for, like, merchandising. But Sailor Moon was a manga, and which did it get a lot of merchandise? Certainly, but I wouldn't say like are there other magical? I'd say if you want to look at merchandise driven ones, it's going to be TV shows like Ojimata Doremi and Precure are 2 good examples of ones that are built around the merchandise. But a lot of them were like either original anime or they were like adapted from manga, and you don't like Goku doesn't, Goku wouldn't do the Kamehameha, and then you immediately after that, the week after, get the Kamehameha toy, right?
No, because it's not a series that was made to be merchandise driven, which is different again when you're comparing, like, again, some especially Precure, where it's like you get a new mid-season Precure, she has a unique transformation device, so you go to the store the next week and there it is, and you want to buy it, and that's Kamen Rider, Super Sentai have the same. They've literally run those 3 shows literally run alongside each other.
They're all made by Toei. They're all run by Toei, so it's like
they're toy commercials. Are they really good toy commercials? Yes,
and they're also really well written toy commercials sometimes.
Yeah, like my favorite, like Lupin Repressed, one of my favorite shows.
Kamen Rider Drive,
Precure, Precure, a la mode, Hugto Precure, Heart Catch Precure, great shows. I like them. Speaking of nihilistic themes, Futarewa Precure. Like a part of the major conflict is like overcoming, the nihilistic like endlessness of conflict and suffering or not.
It's the idea that like no matter what happens, no matter how much evil you kill, there's just gonna still be evil.
Right.
So why even
the
try?
Great Dark, like eventually humanity's gonna be gone. The universe is gonna be gone. It's entropy. Like it doesn't bring it up specifically, but it does. Like that's what the Great Dark, like the Dark Lord guy, is meant to evoke, is the inevitable end of anything. And the Cures never say that they're going to defeat the inevitable end of everything. They're just going to keep fighting. They're going to keep in their transient lives. They're going to exist and accept that existence, even though everything comes to an end. Which I think is an interesting theme to explore as the first work in a series that ended up becoming like a work that never ends. Where you could, because I've heard that you can make this argument against these kind of series because it's like every like a Super Sentai and Kamen Rider 2, where it's like the series fight goes on, they beat the big bad, and then like a week later there's a new world-threatening big bad. Like how much does it really matter? But what Futarawa says is that like you're living in this moment, it matters to you. And I think people like I suspect when someone like finishes a series for the like one of these series for the first time, they get like some kind of connection to it. Because at least like with me, the first Precure series I finished was Kirikiri Precure a la mode, which is currently my favorite, and Lupin Ranger vs. Pat Ranger for Super Sentai, which is currently my favorite. So like I have some sort of attachment to these ones that I finished for the first time. And I'm not saying that's going to be the case for everyone, but like for me. Yeah. So, but for me, like the fact that like the ones that these shows like they on some level they're I don't know, they might be forgotten eventually, but it's special to me, right? And for a lot of kids, like every Precure season is someone's first, So again, I just wanted to say, as far if you want to talk about nihilistic themes, Precure, okay?
No, what makes people like the assertion that she makes is that the reason why people watch this is because they like to see the people suffer. That's not true. When you watch any series that has a lot of characters suffer, what people are invested in is not watching them suffer, but watching them prevail out of it. There's something cathartic about watching somebody who's suffering and being in pain and going through all this shit and suffering, but still coming out of it strong. That's inspiring.
The deeper the darkness, the brighter the light that shines from it comes.
That's like the point of Berserk. That's like why everybody loves Berserk.
Yes.
In Guts, they see this guy who's able to like, who went through so much shit. His life is ass. He should have killed himself a long time ago, but he doesn't.
Well, Berserk is interesting because at the end of the day, it's about friendship. Griffith is the bad guy because he betrayed all his friends and let them all die. But the reason, people like connect with Berserk differently than they might a shonen series is because it is darker, because Guts suffers more, and because he suffers in ways that you can't do in a shonen series. So when when Guts overcomes everything and still is able to keep these friends, despite being this broken person, like that hits people differently.
Well, there's also of course, what we just got finished watching, ReZero. ReZero's the embodiment of that, because everybody focuses on the fact that Subaru dies and returns by death.
Suffers, and it's painful.
But that's not like the point of the story. The best moments in ReZero that everybody remembers is the moment where for once Subaru's about to give up. He's about to run away. And then Rem tells him that you are my hero. I believe in you when no one else will. And I know that you can keep fighting.
And I think what we're getting at is here, like what are we mentioning? Berserk, one of the most respected manga of all time, especially in the West. ReZero, super fucking popular for a good reason. Madoka Magica, super fucking popular for good reason. What shows did she bring up?
These three shows that
Magical Raising Project. Everyone hates it.
Dude, Danganronpa is great,
no one cares. So is it torture porn? Probably. I don't know. I haven't seen it.
It's not really. It's just it's trying to do the whole going fighting despite adversity shit that Madoka does. It's just I have to rewatch it, but I remember just I know it's that's the point though. It's a laughable version. But I know people who even like things like Magical Girl Sight. I'm not gonna name them because they might, but there's the reasoning why they get attached to Magical Girl Sight is because it highlights this aspect of the bullying and the abuse that they went through.
Oh no, I think Pedantic Romantic had an interesting video on it where she talked about how even though they go through this suffering, they're suffering in solidarity, they're able to form these connections and have these friends even though what they go through is fucking horrible. And that again, the brightness shining stronger because of the shitty parts, right? And how bad the shitty parts are. But
I watch it to watch the kids to get views, dude. That's what I go for, apparently. That's
right. And again, she's making this assumption about the audience without being able to back it up. Like, I'm not show me a tweet. Show me a tweet of someone who's like,
I want to see at Mad.
Sorry, comparing Magical Girl Sight and Madoka. Magical Girl Sight didn't get my dick as hard, or no, the other way around. Madoka didn't. Where's that person? I want to see a tweet by at Madoka. That's a fucked up person. I don't want to meet. I want to see
a tweet by at Madoka fan 25,000 where he just says children dying is fucking based. Pog #relatable. That's what I want to see right now.
I can't. Rebellion sucks. It brought everyone back. They should have been. No, actually, the end. They like Madoka up to the ending when Madoka like brings everyone back and saves Magical Girls. Is like, suffering is based. I can't believe Madoka betrayed its theme of fuck little girls. Oh. They suck and should die. Okay, this is terrible. We should move on. What are we doing? Why is everyone listening? This one's bad. Okay. Bad. Like I'm usually like the reasonable one. I think that's the problem. Is like I try to like tone down the toxicity, but this time I'm just kind of mad.
Well, like it's hard because it's one thing to like assume the intentions of Urobuchi, right? Because that's already shitty. But now they're asserting the intentions of us. And it's like
Madoka isn't my absolute favorite anime. That would be Hidamari's Sketch. But Madoka it's my longest favorite anime because I've been a fan of it since 2012 when I got into anime. So we're talking almost 9 years. And yeah, she's saying I'm a bad person and I like girls suffering when that's not, I don't think that's true. Shut up.
Play the video. Please, I want to die. Let me die.
I can't believe what I'm about to say for this video. It's been known for decades that moe, an anime-specific style featuring cute, clumsy young girls, is an utter cash cow, a golden goose, a meteoric force that accounts for a third of otaku market profits, raking in billions upon billions each year.
That's so moe, it makes me sick!
Madoka is a perversion of moe, a sort of transgressive, provocative work that clips together cute blobs and horrific violence. It entices viewers to desire protecting the cute thing, to alleviate that pain. This makes the connection people have with the show and its characters even stronger, and it sells those figs like nobody's business.
See,
this phenomenon even affected key staff members. During production, Shinbo begged Urobuchi to rewrite the plot so that Sayaka survived. He'd just grown that fond of her. Moe, though generally referring to feelings of affection and deep appreciation for cute things, has always had an underbelly that has dipped low into eroticism. So I'm just gonna spell it out. The term is torture porn for a reason. Some of the fans of these magical girl titles are there because it turns them on. And yes, the companies that make them know this. It's a market. It's another reason that I'm critical of the mindset that Madoka was created with. We can't really say if this was a factor in its development, but the way in which it inspired a whole subgenre is relevant and undeniable.
I hate everything about this.
Craftsdwarf. Here's the thing. Anyone who gets off to Maho Shoujo Ikase Keikaku, I think they're just sick, and I don't know if they're real, if I'm being honest. Because if you watch that show, and you get turned on by anything, especially Swim, a fucking literal child, like, there's something wrong with you, bro. Like, you need to calm down.
So I'm gonna come at this from a different angle, because, like, I don't think eroticism is inherently bad. In fact, I think any form of, like, sexual expression is fine as long as no one is hurt.
November, Craftsdwarf.
And if you're talking about fantasy spaces, then by nature, no one is hurt, because it's fantasy. And I feel like she doesn't have a very good grasp of what moe is and why, like, she's like, why is it so okay? What's so bad about someone getting off on torture porn? Is it weird? Sure, but they're perfectly within their rights to enjoy it for whatever reason. I don't care. Like, I'm not gonna say it's for me, and I'm not, but like, I don't think she's really, like, that's not what moe is. Like, what? Like,
no.
Oh, it's one to protect cute girls? Like, that's not a very strong reading.
Moe is a very, like, nuanced term that even within otaku circles and people who, like, study
it's
moe,
hotly debated, right?
There's no one meaning for it. Like, for example, All Might, being a big buff man and then, like, hugging Deku is moe.
Or becoming, I made a joke because we were reading Kinnikuman, and there's a character called Warsman. He's a fighting machine. He's a human computer. He's incredibly calculating. He's perfect. And then, like, in a popularity poll, he gets like 7th place, and he's like, thanks. Like, and then the parentheses say he's unexpectedly shy. And I made a joke like, oh, is this Gap Moe? because it is. That sort of like contrast between like what they seem like and what they actually are is an aspect of adorableness that people like in moe characters. And so I applied it to Kinnikuman, this super masculine fighting wrestling series, where like again, so there's way more factors to moe than just like, oh, cute girls who you want to protect. Is that a factor into it? Yes, but it's also about understanding the cute girl and like seeing their perspective and connecting to them and like, and liking them and wanting to buy figures. Like, again, there's a lot of ways to, it's basically just to speak it as broadly as possible. It is like an appreciation and enjoyment of like fictional characters, like part of that involves like a fantasy space. Again, like going back to the torture porn thing, like, okay, as long as they're not torturing people in reality, I mean, without consent, because some people are into that, but like, that's where I go to like the harm aspect, where, like, as long as it's not causing real harm. And, so I just fundamentally don't agree with like the demonization of eroticism. And,
there's
so I just
the fact that, again, she's once again asserting, it's like, if you like this, you like this. If you're into this, then you like this, right? If I'm into moe, then all of a sudden I'm also into torture porn, or like, okay. So a big reason why there's, if you look into like slice of life genre, which is what she like connects the concept to, she shows a bunch of slice of life series. Madoka Magica is on a slice of life. And
is moe a big aspect to those? Yeah, like even Hidamari Sketch was like an influence and connected to Madoka Magica, right? But like, and her reasoning is like, oh, they're cute girls, and you want to see these cute girls suffer, I guess.
Which we've already went over. That's not what appeals people about Madoka, but also, the idea.
Well, like, and that's the other thing about the eroticism thing is it's like you're talking about fringe groups and audiences here. Like, look. Yeah, some people like she even said it, like some people like the torture porn aspects, and that she's saying that's a problem, but like it's not that's okay. So let's put it this way: if someone watches Sailor Moon, but they mostly like it for dojins of underage characters, involved in sexual situations, is that a problem? Like, is Sailor Moon a problem for having these? For having underage characters?
Does that even though it's like
there's nothing like
like all of them,
right? Exactly. Like no, and it also doesn't reflect again on the work. Like what people do with it in their own spaces doesn't matter to the work itself, and it doesn't reflect on everyone else in those spaces.
Like, it's funny because she keeps mentioning this fact of like, I'm not saying that. She's pulling out the tap shoes, she's dancing on the line, and she's like, she goes, which
begs the question of what is she saying? And I think what she's saying is clear. Like, she's interested in, again, demonizing these very small groups that like if she's interested in protecting people, like, again, like this is a big discussion in Lolicon, where, okay, these people enjoy, like, underage characters in these fictional spaces, but going after lolicons doesn't stop actual child predators, because most child predators aren't lolicons. In fact, lolicons enjoy it because, again, it's a fantasy space. They enjoy the fictional aspect of it, the aspect of it you can't get in reality. Therefore, they don't like the real. Like, that's actually a big thing with moe in general, is they like the fantasy, the fiction element of it. Like, they don't care about reality. Like, this is where you get the meme of otaku 3D pig disgusting. They don't like real people. They think real people look ugly because 2D people look cute.
There's like,
and only 2D people. They don't care. They're divorced from reality. That's a different problem but
there's also like,
so I just don't understand where this demonization of eroticism and like moe, like, because it's like, are there problems with it? Yeah, like, obviously someone divorcing themselves from reality and not caring about it, like, that maybe that's not the healthiest mindset, but that's up to them.
What's happening now, what's really the problem is, like, even aside from any of that, she's casting stones, and then when people call her out on it, she's like, wait, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to throw it at you. Then she throws it again. She goes, I don't mean to throw that. It's like, she's casting blame.
Right, like that would be her defense. Like, where she's saying, oh, but some Madoka fans like it for torture porn. Like, well, we don't. But she's, well, I didn't say that. I said some, not all. But like, she's still saying it. Like, she's painting this narrative that Madoka is fundamentally like exploiting moe and magical girls for torture porn that started this whole trend of torture porn that a bunch of bad people therefore, because bad people made it. Like, that's that's 90% of what she said in this
I'll
video.
give you a rundown of what's
Therefore,
happened, though.
I don't think like the backpedaling saying, well, it's only some, it's only like this is just my opinion, like that kind of thing isn't a shield for what she's saying is the problem.
Let me give you a rundown of what's happened
or
so far,
a
though.
problem.
Because it's like she starts the video going off with like, Madoka Magica is a bad show. You can like it, but if you like it, you're supporting a bad show. I'm just saying. Gen Urobuchi hates children. I don't know Gen Urobuchi. I'm not omniscient, but
Sayaka, she is part of Al Qaeda.
Al Qaeda. Madoka fans like really like torture porn. I'm not saying all of them, but I'm just saying. Madoka Magica. After Madoka Magica, there seemed to be a trend of dark magical girl shows. I'm not saying Madoka caused it. But I'm saying Madoka caused it. That's the entire video. She's like saying a thing, backs off, and then like asserts that she's still right. And it's like, that's really the infuriating thing. And she's like, one, there's no sources. Like, she has Akiyuki Shinbo and begged Urobuchi to bring Sayaka back. And it's like,
and maybe there's a source for that somewhere because there was for the other interviews she
doesn't show
mentioned. But if she doesn't link it, then that that's just
a reflection of her own
it's intellectually dishonest because she's not putting what her sources there that like does she not want anyone to challenge her? Like from the sounds of it, no.
Especially the way she's
even though she knows that this video is going to get negative, right? But like the fact that she's not like that should be front loaded. That because that's when you say this person said this, the first thing you should expect as a response is where. When did they say that? Why did they say that? What was the context that they said that? And the best way to answer that is to just have the source prepared. Because I had to find that article that I linked. And I'm not going to go find the Akiyuki Shinbo one about Sayaka. Maybe he did say that. The other thing about Akiyuki Shinbo is that he doesn't... He's listed as the director for all the Shaft shows, but he didn't necessarily work heavily on every single one. Like, yeah, he also doesn't... he sometimes works under pseudonyms because he doesn't like having his name appearing in the credits twice. So, like, Akiyuki Shinbo's involvement in shows in general is up to debate. Because it's not clear. And so, like, I'm not even sure how much work he did on Madoka is what I'm trying to say. Like, Digi was gonna try and do something where she, like, would watch all the Shaft shows and try and figure out what was Shinbo and what wasn't based on her, best educated guesses and assumptions. And then she did, like, 2 videos and stopped because, of course, it's Digi. But the point is that, like, some people say Shinbo does everything. Some people Shinbo's does nothing. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Where is this interview? Tell me, show me, help me understand your perspective better. Because, like, she didn't source the one that I found. That's a really shitty interview because it's just, like, three quotes from 2 different people from a bigger interview that we aren't privy to. I'm getting tired. We still have, like, 6 minutes left.
So, does all that make Madoka bad? And that's the question I've been struggling with this whole time. Madoka isn't just popular as a sadistic thrill piece. It's immensely popular because it's a good, likable show. All sorts of people enjoy it. Those who might be watching it for the above reasons are only a thin slice of the audience. Most of my friends like it, and really, I like Madoka Magica. And we like it for the story, the characters, the animation. There's really a lot to love. I've said before and I'll say it again, Madoka Magica is a really good show. At this point, it's fair to call it a classic. So I'm not really trying to condemn it. I want to scrutinize the people who made it, to engage in a conversation about the process of creation, and how a really good thing may have been born from downright unkind intentions, and why that matters. I mean, Mewtwo said it best back when I was just a little kid.
Oh my fucking
The
god!
circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. It's what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are.
Oh my fucking god!
See, when she said Mewtwo, I was like, wait, hold on, is that like a YouTuber? And then it's like, no, it was literally Mewtwo from the Pokemon movie.
No, it wasn't even the Pokemon movie. It was from she fucking showed a clip from Pokemon from Mewtwo Strikes Back or Mewtwo Returns.
Right, which was the wrong because I remember that quote from the movie, the first Pokemon the movie. But anyway, so like the thing about everything she just said there is that it goes against how she framed everything she said before, which again, it goes back to the backpedaling the shields, right? Where it's like, she very much painted this narrative that Urobuchi, like, she said all those things, but she didn't show, she didn't show those quotes herself. She said them and expected us to take them at face value. She didn't point us to people who do take these things and torture porn stuff from Madoka. She just said it and expects us to take it as face value. Like, it's not a well-framed video. Like, the rhetoric is just not good here, where it's going against what she's trying to say. because if she's trying to say everything that she just said in this last section, but the video wasn't presented like she said, oh, but I still like Madoka. Well, now I'm like, why? Because you find it really problematic, but she's like the characters. But what do you enjoy? You don't seem to grasp Sayaka's character. Like you were just full of questions when you were explaining it before, right? Like, what did she say about Sayaka's? Oh, she might feel this way, but she might feel this way. Like, is that really what you like about Madoka? That you don't get it? I just don't understand what she enjoyed. Like, I
personally don't like stories that deviate too far from my own moral center in terms of what it's trying to say. Like,
because like with me, I tend to not like stories like that. And the only exception I can really think of is Liar Game, where I just don't think it has a very good exploration of its ideas and its core message at all. And but I still like it because I do like the two main characters. I like some of the games. The main antagonist is funny. Like, and part of that, a lot of that is like nostalgia, the feelings I had for it back in high school a decade ago.
Up to us, stop Umbrella.
Right, and so like, but that's rare. That doesn't happen that often. Most of the time, like when I enjoy something, it tends to be because I do agree with it, and I do agree with Madoka's messages that people shouldn't be sacrificed for the greater good, especially like if they want to sacrifice themselves for a greater good, that's on them. But it shouldn't need manipulation and these faulty, inherently bad systems to do so. And I agree with the ideas of self-love and finding that self-value and learning to make mistakes. And like, these are messages I agree with, and these are the messages that I have read into Madoka, and through reading those messages, and it's not like I agree, because I agree with these messages, like, I was able to read into them. It's more that, like, even if I didn't agree with them, I would like to think that I would still be able to read them out of Madoka, even if I didn't like it. But like, the thing is, my reading, when I like look at other readings that, like this one, for example, I see faults in the logic and reasoning because they're missing context, or they're not, because that's the thing, is when I argue against it, I'm not just saying they're wrong. I'm saying, look, here's this other line, here's this other part of the show, here's why it's incorrect, and I haven't gotten that for like why my readings are incorrect. And usually it's if we, like you mentioned comments on your video, like if we get other readings, they're adding to or other observations that we didn't notice, they're adding to what we're already saying, because our readings seem to be pretty solid.
It's just so irritating, this video, because I'll be blatant. She's pussyfooting around the entire discussion is what is happening. She knows that she's gonna get hate for asserting that people are the way they are, but backs off on it. I actually just went through her comments real quick. I'm not gonna put it on. I'm not gonna mention any direct ones, but she only hearts the ones where people say that they misunderstood her video, that she's actually just trying to start a discussion, that she actually likes Madoka. I don't get that from this video. I would not make an entire video detailing how Sakuraka Kimino, the creator of Love Live, is exploiting, idols and adding to the exploitation of the idol industry, hates women, thinks that like people who believe in their dreams should just suffer, people who should be inspired, who want to be other people should just die, right? And then go, but I like Love Live a lot. I consider it to be a classic. I think it's very good.
It make me cry. Setsuna become my favorite girl in 3 episodes.
No, but like, that's the level, right? Is that I don't know how you say this, but more so it just highlights that you don't get the show you're trying to say you understand.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, if she does like it, then wouldn't she want to give it like more of a shake, like, and maybe try and like understand what the show like, that would make her appreciate even more, because now she can say like, oh, well, I actually do ideologically agree with it, and like, it says something that speaks to me as a person, or something like that. Like, that would, like, that's where I think someone who likes something would want to be, ideally. So it's like, and I'm not, again with Liar Game, I'm not going to say you can't like things and also have problems with them, but at least personally for favorites, like, that doesn't happen with me. So, and it doesn't seem to be a favorite thing of hers. Like, she just likes it. So, but at least in this case, I don't know, there's room for a more generous reading of Madoka than she's given. We've offered some. We have videos with like full, more detailed and in-depth readings.
Yeah, it's just,
we're almost done.
You just blow through it.
That can be true of a piece of media, I think. And between the ultimate product of the Magica Quartet and the major outpouring of love for the series, Madoka has more than earned a charitable read that gleefully kills the author. And this charitable read transforms the show, warping it back around to classic ideals of the magical girl tradition by viewing it through a feminist lens. Madoka Magica can be taken as a story about systems, power dynamics, and the people who are sacrificed to preserve the current regime. Madoka and friends are girls going through adolescence, a stage of life where they're growing into adulthood but still retain a childish naivete. It's directly stated within the text of the series that they're targeted because of this volatile state and the emotional peaks that come with it. Incubators are at the top of the hierarchy within Madoka. They are the power. They've swayed mankind and have been making decisions on how to best leverage their position and the people below it to serve their ends. Yes, they present entropy as a force that must be fought, a great neutral bad that has to be combated at all costs. But because they sit at the top, they control the definitions of good and evil, and more importantly, the flow of information, therefore, how people at the bottom receive and perceive it. So the incubators have chosen to sacrifice adolescent girls because, they say, these girls are the most efficient. They produce the most energy when they change from magical girl to witch. These girls' lives are turned to currency, a currency which they will go to great lengths and employ deceptive tactics to obtain. They are spent to maintain the status quo that best suits the incubators. The good of all is on the line, right? So this is the best way. This is the only way. Yet, in the incubators' seemingly limitless knowledge and power, they were unable, or perhaps unwilling, to find a solution that didn't inflict abyssal trauma and ultimately forfeit innocent lives. It's very easy to read a Marxist philosophy into this narrative, showcasing the struggle between a ruling class and a working class, where even hopes, dreams, and most importantly of all, souls are commodified. It's no coincidence that many of the girls use their wish to escape terrible lives. More than anyone else, those living in poverty or unstable homes would be susceptible to Kyubei's enticement. Sayaka points this out, but in a distorted way. When she laments that people with nice lives like her and Madoka are less deserving of wishes than those in truly terrible situations, she ironically misses the malicious nature of the strategy. In response to being called out on their horrible actions later in the series, Kyubei explains that incubators lack the emotions that humans have. Therefore, he cannot be held accountable for a lack of empathy. It's only logical, after all. The sacrifice made is utilitarian, and therefore justified. Noble, even. Kyubei can claim that their lack of compassion is natural, and yet selfishness comes easily to them. They are clearly creatures concerned with self-preservation. If they weren't, then why would they care if the universe ceased to exist? They will make sacrifices, as long as their lives aren't the ones at stake. There's more dimensions to the power structure in Madoka, though.
Everything she said there was basically right. The problem was that she's, unironically saying, oh, the Kyubeis are logical and utilitarian, therefore they are correct, when it's they're logical and utilitarian, therefore they are wrong.
Well, no. So, that entire time...
if you took that part... real quick, I just want to say, if you took that segment we just watched out of context, I'd be like, damn, she kind of spitting, though. Because, because I understand that the incubators are fundamentally wrong, their systems are broken, and they're terrible, and everything she said was, evidence towards that point. But that's not how she's, what she's saying, or, her main point. Because she's oh, but they are correct, because they ultimately are for a greater good. But that's why, that's the lie. That's why the girls are supposed to agree with him, even as they, uncover more of his secrets. But, they're still wrong, and they...
she's getting debated real freaking hard. It's
she's deep in the uncanny valley of
Can
analysis,
you explain the uncanny
where she
valley
almost
analysis
gets it
for everybody?
Basically, normally the uncanny valley is the farther you go to the right, the more human it looks, where the up or down is your emotional reaction, whether it's positive or negative. And so normally the uncanny valley, you hit that the valley, that's where it's it's almost looks human, but that's when it looks the creepiest. That's where zombies or bad CG can be unnerving or unusual, or ew, that's weird. Because it looks kind of human, but it's just off enough to disturb us. So with analysis, how my idea there is the right and left axis instead becomes understanding. Where, if you just think it's, you think Bleach is cool, and you go, yeah, cool swords, and then you, learn a bit more of storytelling, and you're oh, but it has plot holes, and plot armor, and star fingers, Deus Ex Machinas, and then you fall into the uncanny valley of analysis, because you think you understand it, but you don't, because you're not there yet. Because once you do understand it, you get out of the valley, and you're oh, well, there's a reason for this. There's thematic ideas and conflicts being explored explored here that get into the ideologies that the work is trying to say. And like, so everything she said there was in favor of the incubators are fucking bad and terrible and need to be gone. Like, there's your Marxist analysis there. It's that overthrow the bourgeoisie.
Unironically, though, is what it fucking was.
That's what the point of Madoka is that they need to get rid of them, and they're bad because they're bad.
That she goes like, "But the bourgeoisie kind of base, so they kind of right."
Yeah, right. Like, because of for the flawed, empty, shallow, or incorrect reasons that they like lies that Kyubey gives. Because of that, they are correct. Therefore, the narrative is supposed to be saying that they're right when it's not. And like, so she fell into that uncanny valley where she almost gets it. That's the thing. Like, she just needs that one bit of context. The incubators are wrong, actually, and everything that she just said falls into place correctly, and she does get it. And no longer is she saying that Madoka actually has bad messages, because it actually has good messages.
It's like it's like that scene, like the fucking SpongeBob meme, where like if Man Ray was like looking at Patrick, he's like, does that mean where we should make a meme for that when we promote this episode. It's like this is an incubator. Yes. All right. And he's manipulating girls. Yeah. Yes. Obviously. All right. And that's and they're logical and they're manipulative. Yes. So that
therefore,
means they're right.
To be destroyed. No, yeah, exactly. Right. So Man Ray's like, yeah, therefore they need to be destroyed and overthrown. And Patrick's like, oh no, that means they're right. I'm like, what?
That's what it's like. That's what I'm watching, and it's like that's not how it goes. That's not the thread of logic that you should be going to, because they're not right. They're fucking around. They want to use you for your resources. My entropy's a lie in Madoka Magica, dude. Like, fucking there's.
Or them using the energy for entropy as a lie.
Yeah.
like you said in Rebellion, Homer's just like, we're just going to use it for ourselves. We don't care.
That Pondidator guy who made the other highest viewed Madoka analysis called Homer as a bad person, actually, or something like that?
Yeah, well, I think you watched that was another one that like kind of almost gets it, but
gets
doesn't.
It better than this,
right?
Way better than this video does. But like, he's trying to go from the angle.
Well,
of, like,
it goes too far and said Homer did nothing wrong. When again, like my video is like they're kids and they fuck up, and that's the point.
It's marginal, but it's enough to be wrong still. But he made another video called "Entropy's a Lie" in Madoka Magica, where he literally details the literal facts that when Kyubey was talking about entropy, he was bullshitting the characters. He was fucking with them. He wasn't using the energy to begin with. It was all for selfish reasons.
Oh my god, a good Madoka video that isn't by us?
It's like 4 minutes long. And that's what's funny, is it took 4 minutes for him to explain that entropy is a fucking lie, or at least how he was describing it as a lie. And she's still asserting that...
Well, that video might have come out after that. I don't know.
No, it came out like before, like way before. It came out like...
Oh, well, sad.
It came out like before both of our videos did, so it's like...
Oh. Big sad. All right.
Let's just finish it. Let's blast through. I want to hear how the bourgeoisie is based.
There's a strong patriarchal coding to the incubators, first seen in the innocuous way that Kyubey is referred to as male. In the system created by the incubators, girls are disposable. They serve a purpose when they're young and lively. The incubators aim to control, use, and throw away the girls before they become adults. This can be seen as a mirror to standards of beauty and the idea that a woman's worth relates to her sexual appeal, availability, and the ability to perform labor for their husband. The Japanese language notoriously contains the slang term Christmas cake, which is used to describe something that's only good before the 25th. Girls are viable when they're young, when they're pretty and naive, and when they grow up, they have no use, so they're thrown out. Following these readings, the end of Madoka is ultimately about breaking free of and restructuring systems. Madoka herself takes the first step, eliminating the ultimate cruelty of girls turning into witches and reshaping the universe, the system all these characters live in the process. This read is hopeful, it's empowering. The entire narrative becomes a vessel for critiquing society and how it treats a vulnerable group of people. And that sort of thing works incredibly well within the greater tradition of magical girls, even in a show that can be claimed as a deconstruction of such tropes. Choosing to embrace a reading that leaves behind the dubious authorial intent puts the girls front and center and validates their cries of pain over an unjust world. The explanation for why they should be subjected to the incubator's torment can be taken for what it is. Bullshit. A cruel excuse drummed up to justify a system that maintains power by sacrificing those on the lowest rungs of society. I really hope that this reading of Madoka is the popular one, as it leaves the viewer with a far better takeaway than a series made only to revel in stomping on the hopes and dreams of little girls. While I wish I could take the show at face value and feel that my own read is the intended one, I can't say in good faith that I believe the producers of Madoka Magica meant to tackle the issues above in the manner I've laid out. I think a competent story was told, maybe one that did want to grapple with injustice, but not to the level I've described. All people, myself included, take away what they want from art. Their experiences, lifestyle, and views form the lens through which they consume media. When I choose to dismiss Urobuchi and the rest of the Magica Quartet's statements and legacy, I'm left with a show that I can happily call a masterpiece. One that rises above the foul path laid out for it, and ultimately rewrites itself into a story of hope, of love, and of the value of young women and their lives and emotions. And that's something that I can say that I truly, deeply love and admire. And so, ultimately, I have to come to the conclusion that Madoka is good, actually. The people who wrote it just might be a little, bad. Thank you so much for...
We're gonna go over here. Go ahead and talk. I'm gonna go die.
Real quick, mostly the thing that bothered me the most there was that how, like, oh, people can just take what they want from art. Yeah, so... The main character, Madoka, was actually called Naruto, and Homura was actually called Sasuke, and Madoka was just Naruto. See, I've taken what I wanted from Madoka. See, obviously that's an absurd statement. Like, at the end of the day, like, when discussing art and media, we, like, should still respect the rules of good rhetoric, and have good arguments. Arguments that can stand up to criticism and counterpoints. So therefore, like, when I say, like, I think she's wrong... Like, I'm not saying she does, like, she ultimately likes Madoka. If that's, like, her opinion is fine. Like, she's perfectly well within her right to have any opinion she wants. Because an opinion is fundamentally something that cannot be disproven or proven. I like Madoka. I don't like Madoka. But much of what she says in this video is not opinion. It is readings into the material. It is statements about the creators, the characters, the story, things that can be shown or to be wrong or right. And that, like, at the end of the day, her reading is incomplete. She is missing context, not just from the 12 episodes, but from Rebellion, and we're all missing context of whatever the concept, because maybe some people don't know this. Aside from them just saying at some point that, yes, they are working on a sequel, there was the concept movie, which is what you used the audio for it in the start of your video. And it's basically like a big teaser for whatever the final, for hopefully final Madoka thing will be. And and when that comes out, yeah, our readings are going to change. Like, I feel as though we're as correct as we can possibly be right now. Is there maybe more to add to those readings? I hope so, because Madoka's a good story, and I like to hear more things about Madoka, especially good readings and stuff. But it's also a series that lots of people tend to be incorrect about, because they're, again, taking certain things that you shouldn't take at face value, like Kyubey.
It's just so dumb. Like, the end of this video is probably the dumbest thing of all, because, like, she goes, it's like, she pulls the thing from that tweet that was going around where they were like, sometimes like there was this person going on Twitter saying that, like, they believe in something called accidental geniuses, where it's like, they created something, but it was only good on accident. They didn't actually understand the appeal of their work. And of course, they pull out Naruto as the example because it's the only example they could pull. Yeah, where she's this thing about overcoming systems, that the staff of Madoka wasn't smart enough to do that. That was an accident, where it's like, actually her reading was kind of shallow and half of the point, and they're doing way more with that than she reasoned. Because she doesn't get it, like, if she, was able to read into that, she would be, saying something completely different. And that's where, that was her takeaway, but I'm, at least, or her reading into it, I'm well within my reason to say her reading wasn't right. And, well, I want to ask a question, because you have seen Kamen Rider Gaim. Hello, yes.
I don't care if you spoil it, honestly.
You say no, just
I just want to know, how bad of a person is Urobuchi based on Kamen Rider Gaim and its messages and its ending?
Kamen Rider Gaim is literally so it's been like 3 years since I've seen it, but I do know, I have talked to people talking about who, like, with quality, who likes Gaim a lot. Gaim is basically similar to Madoka Magica, where it's basically just taking these two characters who like strive for what it is that they perceive like the power to save everyone that like what power means to them. And for Gaim, that means to save everybody that he loves. And for
Gaim the character, I
Yeah.
should just because some people maybe haven't watched Kamen Rider,
Yeah.
don't know that the main character is usually called the title of the show. So
yeah, technically his name is Kate. Geez, that's how long it's been. Like it's literally been like 3 years.
No, anyway, so Kamen Rider Gaim believes that being a hero means, or having power means
that
the power to save
everybody that you
everyone.
love and like. Not that necessarily that he sacrifices himself, but that he'll do anything to that end.
If he needs to sacrifice himself, he will.
And that's why, like,
or that's at least an idea he has at one point in the story.
It uses the theme of the Sengoku era of Japan and like knights and samurai fighting for a reason, where like it has these multiple people who have this idea of what power means and what they'll do in order to achieve that end. That's why like the Kamen Rider Gaim literally ends with him becoming Fruit Jesus, like achieving the power of a god. That's what it's all for.
Saving people, though, that's against superheroes. They don't. Oh wait, no. Or Urobuchi is supposed to be a bad person who distorts the work. So therefore, he's actually making fun of superheroes and saying that they're like by doing something as absurd as making the main character based on fruit. Therefore, he's calling superheroes absurd for trying to save people. Right.
Another series that's pretty similar is of course Fate Zero. Fate Zero, you can view it as like, you watch the end of it as like, all these people were just dumb and wrong. But in reality, what Fate Zero ends with is the beginning of Fate Stay Night, which is this idea that like Kiritsugu lost everything. He sacrificed everything for this idea, this ideal that he had.
And he's the antagonist of Fate Stay Night, right?
No, he's not the antagonist. Kiritsugu is not.
Okay.
is. Kirai's bad.
Oh, I don't know who the characters are.
I'll just real quick because like Emiya Kiritsugu is like this guy who for the longest time believed in like
okay. If you just said Emi, I would have known who you're talking about.
What is no, because his name's Kiritsugu. Shut the fuck up. But like so like what is it called where it's like you value the lives of the majority over the minority? It's called like
I would say
there's a
utilitarianism.
Basically he believes in this idea where it's like the trolley problem. Kiritsugu is the guy who would run over the one person in order to save three. That was his entire thing, because he viewed it as like ends justify the means. But throughout the story of Fate Zero, he realizes that idea is only going to lead to more suffering in the end, because he's still killing people at the end of it. He's still making people suffer.
Like there was a just to give my sort of ideological understanding of that regards to media and stuff is like there was an interesting I remember it was in discussion for like Dungeons and Dragons for like paladins and stuff. And or maybe I've heard of, but the idea of a hero, to me at least, is someone who would like they take the third option. Like in the first Spider-Man, the Raimi trilogy, in the first one, Green Goblin's like, will you save Mary Jane or will you save this trolley full of people, right? Like, will you save the one person who matters to you or the larger amount of people?
And he saves both.
Spider-Man's a hero. He saves both. Right, and so like in this case, like it sounds like he's making a concession.
Well, yeah, because like
he's not being a hero. He's choosing one and not the other. When the hero would subvert the system and fight and do the best he can, which is what Madoka does.
Which is really
and
cool about the way Fate Zero ends too. Is that it begins at the beginning of Fate Stay Night, because what happens is after the Holy Grail War, everything's fucked. The entire city's on fire and they're all dying because of it. But Kiritsugu is able to save one person, and that's Shiro, the main character of Fate Stay Night. And
right, so the person who I don't know how fate goes, but I assume it goes
well.
A big
part of Shiro's character is this idea that he wants to be a hero because he viewed Kiritsugu as being a hero. But Kiritsugu said that there's a scene at the end of Fate Zero where Kiritsugu goes like, I failed as a hero. I never achieved my dream. It's not worth it. And then Shiro just goes, I don't think you're wrong for being a hero. I think I'll save everybody. And it's like
so he's a failed, flawed mentor who was able to save someone who can surpass him.
But that's evil, though, Craftsdwarf. That's evil.
So it sounds like Urobuchi between Fate Zero, Kamen Rider Gaim, and Madoka Magica. It seems like he's not he likes exploring dark and characters making bad choices possibly, but still able to become something greater, and improve, like Monica, like I was kind of, as far as like, I kind of hinted at it earlier, but a big thing that I'm probably going to talk about is the idea of like, one thing I see very core in the magical girl genre is the idea of magical girls as people who want to change. You see it in Ojumajo Doremi at the end of the first season. They talk about how like part of why they became witches was because they wanted to change. But the point of the series is that like, what they're capable of as humans without using magic is at times stronger or more, like, because they're not very good with magic, and a lot of times they use magic if it fails. Like, it's ojima means like clumsy, like they're clumsy witches. And so, like, it's about, like, recognizing the strength of their own humanity and becoming strong through themselves rather than through magic. Like it's the same message as Madoka. Okay? And another trope, but what you also get with the characters who want to change is some level of self-hatred. Tsubomi from Heartcatch Precure, she wants to change. Hana from Hugto Precure wants to change. Madoka from Madoka Magica wants to change and literally hates herself and literally has cuts on her arm because she hates herself and wants to be someone different.
Viewing the end of Madoka Magica as a positive thing is also ignoring the fact that in order to do that, she basically committed the ultimate suicide.
Yeah, like the ideal suicide. Like, everyone forgot her, but she doesn't exist, but she also helped everyone through killing herself because the idea of existing was too much of a burden because she doesn't view herself positively, therefore her existence is a burden on everyone else. But so by dying to help everyone, she's doing what she sees as the most ideal. She's wrong, but, you know, it's framed as positive because she's making a mistake. That's what her mom told her to do. Make a mistake to help someone who's so self-righteous they don't know what else to do.
Advocating for the end of Madoka Magica as being a good thing, if we're gonna pull the whole, like, judging the audience for their intentions and judging the author for their intentions, if you view the end of Madoka Magica as being good, you're also advocating for suicide being badass.
I'm just gonna say you don't understand it because I don't think anyone actually.
Well, no,
thinks
but that's
that.
what I'm saying. I don't think anyone actually believes the things that she's saying.
Right, it's absurd.
I don't think that anyone here watches Madoka Magica because they like the girls suffering, like watching them suffer, watching them be in pain. Every single person I've ever met that watched Madoka Magica said that it was when they watched Mommy die, they were like sad. They were like confused. They were shocked. But they liked. A lot of people like Homura's story because Homura is this character who did all these things, hates herself yet did everything that she could to save someone in her light that was Madoka. It's the idea of hope. But this person who made this video writes all that off in order to say that, like, the people who like this show, or not all of them, but some of them, but are they like,
or at least the people who made the show are bad people, and like, I don't know. Again, from just looking at the ideas of his works, that just these three, again, Urobuchi doesn't seem like a horrible person. Was his Al-Qaeda analogy the best?
Probably not.
No, but at least I do understand where he's coming from, even though it's not. It's like, I mean, I get where, because again, Hitler or Nazis are a great kind of like analogy to use for things like when talking about systems that you need to like subvert and fight. The Nazis are systemic evil. Like, to harbor Jews in your home is, like, against the law, right? But we recognize that that's, like, a time where you should subvert systems. So, therefore, like, so if you were going to compare... She did the Marxist reading into Madoka. If you were going to compare Kyubey to the Nazis and the greater good, like, what's the greater good of Germany? Agreeing with the Nazis. But that's not the greater good for humanity. So, it's like... the greater good for the incubators is agreeing with Kyubey.
No, man,
the greater good for humanity is getting rid of the incubators. Like... So it's like, so there's me analoging the story to Nazis, just like Urobuchi did with Al-Qaeda. Is it the best way to read the story? No, because I can talk about Madoka without bringing up the Nazis. And so maybe Urobuchi should have found a way to talk about his story without bringing up Al-Qaeda. But like, again, I do understand where he's coming from, you know? Even if, again, that's not the best analogy that I would use.
I just don't like...
And again, I wish I had the full... interview translated so I could read the whole thing, but I can't.
I just don't like people who like will go out of their way to then assert that writers and the audience feel a certain way, but then when you go out of your way to then assume their intentions, they're like, no, you misunderstood me. That in and of itself should highlight something in your mind that maybe you didn't understand from the beginning. Like,
yeah, I also want to highlight there. So a video YouTuber called Nunmanji did, where it's like don't think you know the author, or something like that. Where he basically talks about the same idea. Yeah, you don't know. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. You don't know the author, so shut up. Where he basically talks about this, where, they don't know the author. They don't know Gen. If you want to understand Gen Urobuchi, talk to him. Obviously, that's like, he speaks Japanese and not English, so there's a huge barrier there. But like, did she read every interview possible? Did she explore all of his works and try and? Because maybe if she watched Kamen Rider Gaim, or she would understand that, hey, there's something positive here, or what about Thunderbolt Fantasy?
Yeah, I have to finish Thunderbolt Fantasy.
he's got a history of writing that's not just Madoka that you can explore.
Psychopaths is also a really big one that everybody brings up. Like, I'm surprised that at no point here she mentioned Psychopaths, which is like, again, alongside Madoka for a while was a really big show in the anime community.
Yeah, and actually that's bring up a good point, because how the first season of that ends, it's like the main character's like, these systems are wrong, but I don't think I can change them yet. Like, it's kind of like Madoka, where the systems are still in place, even though they're wrong and need to be changed. It's a matter of like finding the way to change the
without
systems
hurting other people. Because
and,
like,
you know,
a big part of
where in the case of the big difference is that Akane, she knows they're wrong, she just doesn't know how to change them yet. Or Madoka has the power to change everything, she just doesn't fully understand everything enough, and she doesn't love herself, so she's not ready to get rid of magic and incubators yet. So like the reasoning is different, but the fact that, like, again, it's still exploring these like these not incomplete change, like, again, incomplete stories. Psychopaths just got like a 3rd season. I don't even know. I haven't watched it or anything.
People didn't like season 2, so that's why I've stayed away from it.
Season 2 was an experience. Yeah. So, but again, and that's another issue, is like, we're talking like Kamen Gaim is at least complete. You know, Thunderbolt Fantasy is getting a 3rd season, so it's not like we're talking. A lot of these stories are incomplete. You know, so anyway, we should probably wrap it up here.
Again, we have to clarify again. We're not here to send hate or anything. We just...
I mean, I think, you know, again, our, like, if we got said things and jokes and stuff, like, part of that is, like, we think the way the way the video argues is kind of absurd, and so some of our things were to point out the absurdity by showing the extreme example. Maybe that wasn't clear, and I just, you know, I think the video is misguided, and I think it's ironically, like, you know, even though I think it's coming from a good place, I just think the way it frames itself, the way it argues itself, the readings into the work,
Suicide's pretty badass.
I just really don't like it when authors are spoken for, and especially in a way that paints them as bad people.
That was the thing,
it's
though.
very. That's probably the worst part of this video. It's like, it's taking people who I don't know, who she doesn't know, and is trying to paint a narrative about them and about how, like, and that, I think that's more harmful than anything Madoka could have done. Because someone jacking off to torture porn is not as bad as me thinking worse of another human being, because of how someone else coming from a place of authority, what they said about them. That is worse than whatever someone else does in their fantasies. They can do whatever the fuck they want in their fantasy, as long as they don't hurt people. And this is hurting someone's reputation, I should say. And I'm not a fan.
It's just insane, right? I just personally, you know, don't like when people assert that they know more than the author, or that they know, because even though she pulled the thing where it's like, oh, I'm not omniscient, I don't know what he's thinking, but it's like, you're still making these claims, you're still making these assumptions, you're still saying that I don't think Urobuchi would go that far for a character. It's like you're pretending as if you know more when you don't. And
right, as we've demonstrated, like, there's ways that she could understand magical girls and Urobuchi and Madoka better. She has a kind of a limited understanding of all of them. And honestly, if she's seen all those shows that she's showed, she's probably watched more magical girl stuff than me. And yet, I feel like I understand the genre better, or at least I understand Madoka better.
Well, she hasn't really shown that she has actually watched any of those. She played the openings for them.
It's not evidence. Yeah, it's not evidence in the video. She just showed them as examples. And some shows, like, there was some I recognized by visual, but I'm not sure if I can name them from the visual. I just know, like, oh, that's an old magical girl show. I feel like I've seen it somewhere. You know, like, she pulled from. So again, like, I don't know if she's seen them or not. I would assume no, based on how she talked about them and how her reading into what magical girl was about was kind of like, it was like friendship and girls, and, you know, like, yeah, sure. I think I've said some other things that I've taken from the genre so far. So I don't know. Yeah, we've been going. I mean, I say that we've only been recording for like 2 hours for a 20-minute video. That's not that bad. All things
we're
said.
actually pretty tight on this one.
Like, in comparison, the Jeff one was a half-an-hour video, and it was like a 3.5-hour discussion. So, anyway, thank you for listening.
I wanna die.
Oh.
Suicide is badass, though.
Are you a little girl? If that's so, then
Base.